Welcome to episode 126 of the Reptile Gumbo podcast. How's everybody going? We're back down to just three people. My dad's gone.
Boop, boop.
I say we're back down to three. We were 3-1 because Robert wasn't here.
Oh no, he's not here to cook anymore. That's why I'm sad he's not here anymore.
That is true. There's not someone just cooking food downstairs.
And he cleaned up after himself too. You could take a lesson or two in that.
I haven't cooked in a while.
Your mom, even if they didn't cook, they always cleaned up after me when I cooked dinner.
Did you
live in a camper? They
Did
can't
you cook
afford
it
to
the whole 3 weeks she was gone?
I mean,
he made taquitos.
Like not air fryer pizza rolls.
He made taquitos the other night and then dropped them on the rug. And then called me to apologize because there was melted cheese all over the rug.
I just melted cheese on top of them, took them out of the oven, and then the tray fell off the oven onto the rug.
She sat down.
And luckily I did not grab the pan. And it just cheese sat down all over the rug. And then when I came back in the kitchen, like 5 minutes later, Millie had licked all the cheese. That's our dog, not like our kid or anything. Our dog had licked up all the cheese off the rug. So.
I told James that I didn't tell you the other part, the sad part about it. I discovered, apparently lots of people knew about this and I didn't, that they sell no-bake cheesecake filling in a tub. Oh yes. At the small Walmart.
I knew this.
It's like 2 pounds of no-bake cheesecake.
Like filling. It's just the inside
just
of the cheesecake?
Filling. Yes, ma'am.
What the fuck?
So I was like, that's
going in the basket. How did I not know about this?
Yeah. I ate like 3 or 4 bites and then put it in the fridge. And then the next day I went to get it out to get a couple more. And I took the lid off and I dropped it and it fell right upside down on the floor.
And I was like, I mean, I'd have to eat like a whole bottle of Lactaid to be able to consume that, like, but it would totally be worth it.
Rachel just mopped.
Oh
no, too much dog hair.
Yeah, you got dog.
So I pick up the tub and there was still some like stuck, and I was like, well, that didn't touch the floor.
That's hilarious.
But that's if I drop like a chicken nugget or something on the floor, if I get it fast enough, I'm like, there's no hair on it. It's still good. We're good. But yeah, now if it's something wet, like that's no good.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead. Katie, are you ready?
I am not.
God.
Because I was distracted by Facebook.
We've only been sitting at these microphones for the last 15 minutes waiting to go live and still not ready.
No.
That's all right. I didn't pull up the. Let me go ahead.
If you are looking for a high quality PVC rack, look no further than Lone Star Reptile Racks. They offer a variety of sizes for all types of snakes, geckos, rats, and more. You can even order something custom. Shipping is available, or you can plan to pick up at a Herps Reptile show near you. Visit lsreptileracks.com to reach out to Lone Star Reptile Racks and place your order today. Yes,
get your orders in, especially if you're going to be at a Herp show. Get your order in, pick up your rack in person at a Herp show. And speaking of Herps, we've got several coming up. August 13th and 14th, that's in 2 weekends. We have the Corpus Christi, Texas show. We will be there. I will be there set up with the podcast stuff, and we will be doing interviews at Corpus Christi. I'm excited about that. Then a week later, we're going to be in Bryan College Station for the Bryan College Station show. I will also be set up there doing interviews. My goal is to do several interviews at those 2 shows and probably Conroe, just so we can get back to putting out some of those live show interview episodes. 1, I know people, they've told me they enjoy listening to those. And 2, that gives us a week off.
We're about to start school, man. We're going to have to take a week off here or there. Our kid starts junior high.
Yeah.
We have to actually like hang out with her now.
What? I just saw the last of the few Mlb trades and my mind's blown.
Somebody got traded the other night, before the game even started.
He knows it was to the Astros. He's aware.
Also, it was live on him when he found out. And he was like, what?
He was shell shocked.
What? Because they were playing them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway,
sorry, go ahead.
I'm not mentioning our sponsors here or anything.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Austin, Texas, August 27th, 28th. Conroe, Texas, September 10th and 11th. Again, that's the big Conroe show. That's the good one, too. That's the fall Conroe show, which tends to be a little better. People have babies for sale and all sorts of stuff. So make it to that show, especially the way gas prices are going. Gas prices are going down. You might be able to afford to buy a snake now.
Where are you going?
Conroe.
No, just kidding.
Can you put your phone up and pay attention?
I thought you said Austin.
Anyways, New Orleans, September 17th and 18th. Waco, Texas, August 15th and 16th. Or as Chris keeps talking about the branch. I can't branch to what the fuck is the crazies?
Branch Davidians. You were saying you were going.
I was going to say it. It just sounds wrong. I would just say the wackos in Waco. October 15th and 16th, and then Lafayette, Louisiana, November 5th and 6th. We need to go there just so we can eat. And then I know we're all excited for this one. November 12th and 13th.
Mm-hmm.
It's home show.
Pearland.
It's the first Pearland show.
Yeah.
We get to sleep on our own beds. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. It's like 15 minutes down the road.
I'm wondering how many people are going to try to crash at our house, though.
Not a damn person. Fuck all of y'all.
I know I already have at least.
Nice.
I know that Logan's room and Lily's room are already spoken for.
I love it.
At my house.
No one. They can sleep in the backyard. Yeah. Bring a tent.
You are so not cool.
Nope. I'm super excited about
We need to figure out Corpus, are we going to do an Airbnb?
Yeah, we haven't actually figured out where we're staying.
Yeah, that's
We'll
next
figure it out.
weekend.
We probably need to
Figure
do
it
that.
out after the show.
Yeah.
So, yes, make it to a herp show. Get to a herp show. If you haven't been to a herp show, try and get to the Conroe show. That's always the bigger one. Or if you're farther east, Slidell.
Our
You just
friend
had to
John Grant said that
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma was the best one in 2 years.
Yeah, he said he did really well.
Wasn't a very high bar, but
That's true. That is true.
But it was good. I mean, I say that. I know lots of vendors who do well there. I just never did well there, so I'm a little salty about that show just because I never did well there. But,
And y'all just had a Slidell show. It was a very busy Slidell show.
yeah, it was.
Sales were a little down, but sales have been down
Okay.
across the board everywhere.
Yeah, sure.
But you still did well, and that was still. I mean, that's always a busy show. It's a big show. It's a busy
Mhm.
show.
Yeah,
So-
it was definitely busier than the last couple Slidell shows.
I was sad we didn't get to go. That's the first one we've missed in a while, and I didn't get to see our friends. Like we didn't get to see Terry.
Yeah.
I'm sure Doug and Natasha were there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we didn't get to see
We
that.
had a
next to
good
Terry.
visit with your parents, though.
We did. Then also our friends over at Wiregrass Exotics. If you are in North Florida, I got to remember directions, West Georgia or East Alabama, I get to Ozark, Alabama to visit our friends over at Wiregrass Exotics for all your feeder needs. And who else want to plug? Plug Grant Family Exotics. Let's go with that. If you're in bumfuck Oklahoma,
Give your beautiful sign.
but where's I don't Schlitz? Where do they live in Oklahoma? Where's the shop at?
Sand Springs.
Yeah, I was about close. I was close. It's look if you're
They
I
driving.
feel
live
like you're
in
having a
Slick.
stroke.
Yeah.
They live in nowhere, Oklahoma.
They live in Slick.
Slick. That's what it was. I knew it was a S name that no one's ever heard of.
Huh.
Slick, Oklahoma. It's them, their
That's
family.
fun.
That's the population. And then I gotta point out our sign every time. Good. Our friends over at Focus Cube making this awesome sign. So if you want a nice,
I thought about them
pretty
today.
colorful cage,
We were in Bass Pro Shops today.
that is true. I need to.
And I was like, we should reach out to them. They're not far from us. We should go fishing together.
By go fishing, you mean just bum yourself onto their boat?
Pretty
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
I don't think they fish off their boat.
No, I'm sure it's.
But I'm sure Ashley would
I
still
can-
have
I
fun.
can- I
and
can
I could
fish
get a
off any
free
boat.
ride off of a boat.
I can fish on any boat.
I'll bring food.
We'll do our giveaway. Let's do our giveaway at the end. We'll do our give.
Okay.
We got a giveaway for last month.
Do I need to make a note?
Oh, you can make. You also need to talk into the microphone.
Do I need to make a note?
No, I can remember. Hopefully I remember. Oh, and we don't have a giveaway for this month, so sorry if we come home, we'll get you one, but we don't have one. We did one last month and the month before.
We're starting school. It should be
That is true. It's about to get busy. But you can, if you do need a UVB LED light bulb, you can go over to VivTech and use our code Gumbo22 to get you 15% off. Again, if you're using UVB bulbs and you're having to replace them every 6 months, screw that. Go over to VivTech and get you an LED bulb that will last at least 4 years. And they work great. I've got one again running on my tortoises. I got it running on my Uromastics, our bearded dragon. We've got them on all our stuff. So go ahead and get you one. All right. Anybody else? Are we good? Good. I covered everything.
I think so.
So now I can bring our
Get
guest.
good, buddy.
Okay. I bring in our guest. Here we go. And our guest tonight is April Linkfield from, oh my God, African House Snake Morphs. My God.
Snake
Brain
morphs.
just-
Yeah.
I know she does house snakes. That's all I got.
my brain went, I could picture it and my brain went blank. And I've made all the stuff today. I put it all up. Anyways, how's it going, April?
It's going good, guys. It's good to see you.
He's very excited about having you on
Wow.
tonight.
It's house snakes. And I got one house snake, but I want to get more.
I think it's great because we're venturing out and we're talking about new reptile. Like, I mean, they're new to me.
And we
we don't-
ventured out from our herps, all the people we know at herps, and start to go into the other states that exist.
Well, no, but we also haven't had any because house snakes are really small, aren't they?
Yeah,
Ish.
pretty small.
Like small-ish. Yeah.
Less
think
than
the
3
last-
feet.
Yeah. I think the last few people we've had on have done like large species.
Well, the last person we had on did not do large species. Please tell me you didn't forget the last person we had
Well,
on.
no, not Kathy Love.
We had Kathy Love on.
She's in like a whole different category of her own.
That is true.
Yeah. Kathy is a legend for sure.
That is true. But you don't just do house snakes. What else do you do?
Anything nonprofit family. So file snakes, Egyptian false cobras, Madagascar giant hognose, red and black striped snake, just pretty much anything that's in that family. That's my whole family of snakes that I work in.
Okay, the scales, because I don't know what a file snake is, so I totally
Mhm.
Googled it. The scales look really cool.
What you need to do is look up their body shape, because for a regular snake person, when they see a file snake, they think they're unhealthy
Yeah, because they look stupid.
because they're shaped like a triangle.
Oh, yeah.
So-
It looks diseased almost.
Well,
Like,
you
it's
can tell.
like-
You can tell if they're thin or if they're fat because they're always triangle like this, and the way that their ribs actually come off of their spine is at a 45-degree angle, and they're flat. And so if they're unhealthy, the skin will come up the sides of the triangle, and if they're overweight, which is actually very dangerous for them,
Yeah, that picture
it'll
was
kind of
overweight.
it'll kind of do this number instead of being, at a 45-degree angle.
That first picture you looked at, Katie, was not the kind of file snake she's talking about.
Oh, just kidding. This
So-
is cool looking though.
No, that's a good point though, because a lot of times when people are looking for file snakes, there's several different species, and not all of them are very suitable for captivity. I mean, unless you're a very advanced keeper.
You do African?
I do the cross-eye, which is the African file snake. Yeah. There's also the Cape file snake, the Poensis, which is another species of file snake. There's also the marine file snake, which
That's
is
what you were
totally
looking at first.
unrelated.
Yeah, that was the first one I looked at.
Yeah, totally unrelated marine animal that has nothing to do with the others.
Which is also a weird shaped snake. That one is
Mhm.
Thalicod.
Yeah, there's a few. I think the cross-eye is probably just the best suited for captivity. A lot of people really love the Cape. It has the white stripe down the back and it's purple, but the cross-eye are also purple. They don't have the white stripe and they don't get quite as big, but they have much more lenient diet requirements.
This is a very cool looking snake.
Yeah.
They really are, and they're fascinating to watch. And they pretty much never bite anybody. I've never been bit by one, and that says a lot considering how many of them I have and all that. They're pretty docile. They're pretty good with kids. My son has been raising one for a few years now, which is pretty cool.
That is neat. How old is he?
He's 12.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That's how
Yeah.
old. Well, our daughter's 11, but Robert's son is 12.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's a cool
It's that
kid.
age
Born
where you can
into
actually trust them.
snakes.
Yeah.
Cool to be part of that next generation. A lot of us, we're first generation from the early 80s, the veterans, the first explorers of the reptile industry, and we're their children, or whatnot. So it's cool to be able to continue that.
So
sure.
you deal with a lot of the snakes that, for most people, the only time they ever deal with them is as imports. So a lot of people tend to have
Yeah.
negative experiences with many of these snakes because they're not the healthiest. So it's very cool to see someone dealing in captive breeding some of these rare snakes that you tend to see on. I say rare. You see a lot of these snakes on tables at shows.
Mhm.
They are not healthy captive bred snakes. You can tell that they
Yeah. And there's
just come in.
huge, enormous differences too between the wild caught versions and the captive born versions. Especially in file snake. File snakes are prone to some types of disease that make them very difficult to keep alive if they're wild caught, especially like the lung fluke thing, which is zoonotic and transferable to people, which is definitely a problem for the industry. If they don't get treated, that becomes a problem for everybody, not just the snake, but also their keepers. I have had it, and it's unpleasant. And unfortunately, most doctors here in the U.S. aren't going to know to go looking for a African lungworm. They're going to, think you have COPD or some sort of
You
thing.
just have to
I was
walk
going
in.
to say
You have to walk in and go,
that's
I deal with snakes that have African lungworms. Can you check me for that?
I mean, is that pretty much like what you had to do, or did you
Yeah,
have an
so
idea of what it was?
It's actually a funny story. Not the first thing I thought I'd be talking about, but yeah, it's a funny
You do
story.
not have to talk about this if you do not
Oh no,
want to.
it's totally fine. It's totally fine. So I caught a cough, and it was kind of like a chronic-y kind of cough. And I went to the doctor, and he really didn't find anything wrong because he didn't know what to look for. And so I got diagnosed with COPD. Well, fortunately, I have some veterinary background, and I do fecal flotation tests on animals regularly, all the time. It's literally part of my weekly rotation for various things, not just my colony, but other people's colonies here locally that might need assistance with that. And so one day I was kind of not feeling well in the stomach, and I was just I haven't ran a test on myself. So I did. And that's how I found out that I had contracted the African lung fluke, which is
That is so crazy.
pretty wild. And I actually, my physician who, knew what I've been doing for a living for my entire life was kind of, he was kind of like, so, so I brought it into him. I was like, yeah, I have a lung fluke and I need praziquantel for that. And he was like, that's pretty bizarre. And they have to run their own tests because of the insurance and all that. But he ran the test too. And then I got treated for it. But it's always interesting when you have to go see your doctor for things that they don't have any idea about.
Exam.
That is a weird one. So I did my own fecal exam, Doc, and what I needed.
That's exactly how it's gone. And I mean, like you said, I work in stuff that is primarily imported, and everything in the industry was originally imported. Your ball python,
sure.
African, imported. They used to come in with a lot of ticks and like just crazy stuff. And everything that we have now that has a huge captive born population that we can just successfully keep and breed and really just enjoy in the industry, everything had that beginning, that there was that one person or group of people who were like, you know what, it might be a little crazy, we might have to kind of go through it, but they persisted, and now we have the ball python trade, you know what I'm saying? And so growing up in the industry, I kind of understood that when I developed, from a very young age, I developed a passion for specifically the black house snake, because it was the first snake that I really fell in love with, if you will. And long time ago. And so it was kind of something that I just had to accept as part of following my passion, was that I was going to have to figure out ways to establish a really strong, healthy breeding colony of all of those, and specifically like file snakes were a little bit more challenging than the house snakes were. House snakes typically respond to your standard that panicure flagell kind of cross treatments. That, I mean, is the generic shotgun worm. I'm not saying that you should do that, just saying that that's common in the industry, and file snakes don't.
Yeah.
So that was a little bit of
talking about things that are common in the industry. My new mouthwash that I got from the dentist has chlorhexidine in it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It made me laugh a
I
little.
saw that and I mentioned it to the woman at the dentist office. Is like, that's the same stuff I clean my snake cages with.
Yep.
Well, at least
Right.
not the rest of the stuff in your
I was like,
mouthwash.
not
but
the
at
rest
least
of the stuff in the mouthwash, but
I'm really fond of F10SC, the veterinary disinfectant, me personally, but I do work in really kind of higher risk stuff, which does really require that veterinary grade, disinfectant to really.
I know that's stronger. I just the Chlorhex I like just because of how safe it is. Because like,
for sure.
you could almost drink that stuff. I mean, you have it in a mouthwash, Katie. So I mean, it's
right.
But yeah, if
I'm
I was
not
dealing,
knocking chlorhexidine.
No.
It's definitely a solid disinfectant, but I was just mentioning that's what I use.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're definitely dealing in things that, well, so I've heard before, because you get imports and people's first sometimes thing to do is I need to worm this right away. But sometimes imports come in, they're not the healthiest, they're kind of have a weak immune system. And you hear that's not the best thing to do. And that can sometimes really throw off their system if you just start pumping them full of meds, right?
Well, first of all, you really just shouldn't be shotgun treating anything, because one, you're going to add a lot of extra stress onto things. Two, it's really the best route, and especially if you can do it yourself, and it's really easy to do, you guys. Like seriously, like anybody can learn how to do a fecal float test. It really can. It's that easy, like really is easy. So if you do the flow test, then you actually know how much you have, what exactly you are working with, and then you can treat using exactly that. And it costs so very little if you are doing it yourself to do that. I mean, supplies wise, you're talking like maybe $2 to
Is
do
that
a test.
per?
Yeah, I mean, it is per test in the sense of that, like you'll have to use some of the, Fecasol float, blah, blah, but it's very cheap. It's very cheap. And if you're considering like the cost of doing that against the cost of the life of the animal, it's nothing, know? So, I'm not really that fond of shotgun treatments, mostly because a lot of times they're done simultaneously. Like you'll see people just on the docks, just like oral syringing panicure flagell into stuff, like as if it all had it. And, you know, that is a thing that can, you know, stress out the body, especially some of these ones that are, you know, if they're really thin, they're already, you know, there's counterindications for a lot of that stuff. And people just kind of go into it like willy-nilly with like very little understanding of what they're actually doing. And then, you know, you can make it worse, or you can kill them even, you know. And there's another thing about, like, especially with the praziquantel, like, that is not a high safety margin drug like how Panacur is.
Yeah.
So when people, like, especially taking file snakes, the wild caught file snakes, and then they want to treat them themselves and they want to do that, but it's margins of safety.
Well, it's funny. We talked before we got online. We were talking about people doing things, treatments for their animals, and not going to a vet for certain things. And I always think it's funny. We've seen people in reptile groups. Well, you've got to go to a vet for this and that. Some of the simple things you could probably do at home if you're trained a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like, just go talk to horse people and see what horse people do to their shit. Like, horse people treat every fucking
Horses.
thing.
You know, I grew up on a dairy farm, dude. If we had to go see Dr. Canopy, it was freaking, the cow was dying. I mean, I watched my grandpa do like surgery, and
they've got every dewormer on hand and everything to get rid of any parasite. And
Yeah,
they're doing it all.
I have a whole collection of various, you know, stuff that I use for that. And, you know, it's just a matter of knowing what you need to do. And that's the part that I think a lot of people miss about doing it themselves, is that you have to run that test. Like, it's not, it doesn't take long, it's not expensive. I don't really understand why people don't do it more often, because it'll tell you exactly what you need to know, you know. So
that's why I think people need to reach out and find, like, if you're new in a hobby, reach out and find somebody and talk to them and learn things. Something simple, like even like sexing a snake, like probing. Like, so many people, like, they want to buy a probe kit and go probe a snake. I'm like, you got to know what you're doing. Like, you can really fuck up some shit just shoving a rod inside your snake. Take that however you want.
I definitely witnessed some perforations that from people that have done it. I mean, it's one of those things that, it helps. I think everybody really does need to have a good mentor if they're especially if they're gonna go in professionally, you know. And I don't think that everybody that is a professional really should be. I think you should follow your passions in that until it becomes something that you can do without having to have it be financially motivated. You know what I'm saying? But don't get me wrong. The fact that I breed snakes for a living is my pride and joy in life, outside of my children, of course. So it's
okay.
Right. But it is, you know, but it is something that I think in the industry can get a little bit complicated when people are entering in because they're going, oh, you know, I'd make a lot of money or whatnot. And then they start doing it for that reason instead of like the original passion or joy of, you know, of the species. And
I've talked to Robert about this before, about people that come in without snakes being like, they don't get into snakes because, oh, I really like snakes, I think they're really cool. But their first thought is, I can do this as a business. And then they also come in with a completely different mentality. So like we talk about even like going to shows, like, so if it's, so it's not a business for me, it's just a hobby for me. So I'm completely different doing a show than someone who has to make a living at it, especially completely different than someone who came into it only to make a living at it. Not because they like snakes and then they're going to make a living at keeping snakes. But when you have someone that comes in straight away and like, I'm going to make a living, and they have a bad show, and then their mentality on how that goes afterwards is like, we've seen all these collections going away. Everybody's selling their collections lately.
Yeah.
And some of them are people that were reptile people, but there's a lot of them there that you can see those collections that are mostly ball pythons, where they are like, I'm going to make all my money. And then we hit a lull, which is what you should have expected. You shouldn't have you should not have expected COVID time. COVID time was great for animal sales. That was wonderful.
It was.
Now we're back in reality. And in reality, not everybody can buy a new ball python every week.
Yeah.
And so it's the mindset of people is completely different when they come into it as just a business versus as growing into it as a business.
Well, even if you did have that mentality and then you use it as a business, you end up having to make decisions that you might not would have wanted to make. And I'll give you an example of that. So the house snake taxonomy is a mess and has been a mess for eons. So there's a lot of snakes that are in that, the lamprey family that, used to be considered the same species as ones that are others now, and that are now considered hybrids. And you're not really going to find a lot of that hybrid shaming stuff in house snakes, because we just don't have the taxonomy cleared up well enough yet to even do that. But so part of what I wanted to do, the goals that I had as a breeder and a person who has, I would consider probably one of the largest house snake lamprey collections, was to kind of just try to understand that taxonomy a little better, because it wasn't, being studied a whole lot. Not a lot of commercial breeders of house snake, So one of the things that I wanted to do was I did a lot of hybrid pairings, and not this last season, but the one before. And because I was trying to understand, how the species, if these two things were compatible, then what does that mean about their taxonomy? And if they're not, then what does that say about their taxonomy? And, things of that nature, which genuinely fueled my curiosity and genuinely fueled my passion for understanding them and bringing them to the world in a way that, we could expand upon, and really having some building blocks for like the house snakes moving forward. And when you're doing it as a business, as something that you need to make money to survive, you also have this competing concept of, well, if I use these females to do that sort of thing, then I won't have these females to make things like hypo greens and, red Kenny albino and things that are good sellers, because they're flashy, beautiful, bright neon green, or they're, this insanely intense saturated red, or, various shades purple, or, like the black house snakes I've been breeding for ages that now are, almost blue, because they're just been bred to be that color,
Yeah.
But it really does kind of, as a professional, someone who does it for a living, you do have to kind of balance those aspects. Whereas if you weren't doing it full time for a living, you might have a little bit more freedom to follow the passion for the education, for the expansion of the species, for that, and it's kind of a shame, but it's also, you have to do it, because if you don't have some form of way to keep producing, then you also don't get to, have those projects, those side projects that would help the industry moving forward. You know what I'm saying?
Talking about how the market's kind of flooded right now. There's 37,494 ball pythons for sale on Morph market right now.
That's so crazy.
I can't figure out why people can't sell their snakes. It's crazy.
That's crazy, man.
Why can't I sell my pastel? I just need to sell my 10 pastel ball pythons. Why can't I sell
as
them?
Opposed to 1,400 corn snakes?
When I was in Alaska, I actually had a different business. It was Arctic Exotics, and I bred ball pythons for a few years up there, and had the same kind of lost my love for them. And it's not that I don't like ball pythons, don't get me wrong, and I have friends who are ball python breeders who I have just the most enormous amount of respect for, really do. Like, for example, Mark Muldell, Mlb Exotics. He's kind of a veteran. Ben Cole has been doing things for ages of time. Nick Puppo, Lecco My Gekko, has been doing things for a really long time. I mean, these are people who, have been around 20 plus years in the industry, and I would never, ever say anything against them. But it is kind of a thing where, that's a very large pond. And so when you're going up against, competing per se against people like that, you might have a hard time selling your 10 pastels, because you have something that everybody has.
Yeah, it's not that. Well, that's one thing about you. Like, your collection is something that you don't see that often. And I think more people need to, if they're really into snakes, it's fine if ball pythons got you into snakes. That's cool. But there's so many other snakes that you can look into. And if you're thinking, I want to, if you're trying to make money, I guess, unless you can spend the kind of money it takes to make money in ball pythons, which let's face it, to really make money in ball pythons, you're gonna have to spend
A lot. Yeah.
then you need to get into those things that every time you produce a litter or a clutch, they sell out, right?
Yeah.
If you produce a clutch of file snakes and nobody else really doing that, there's only a handful of people that are doing it, you're probably going to sell out every time. And
I cannot keep them in stock.
yeah. So, and there's so many other snakes like that. I've said for the longest time that I thought house snakes were going to be the next big thing. Just because size, ease of care.
Awesome. I mean, what other snake changes colors like that?
Well, then there's so many different color like I have, I suck at which ones are which, but I have the one that is, I'm just going to call by color. It's the brown with like the gold stripes down the eyes.
That's a cool looking snake. The one
that
downstairs.
Is actually a normal, believe it or not.
Yeah, I love that thing.
The normal, and sometimes they're gorgeous shades of red, lace kind of patterns, and like there's so much variation in just the normal house snake. And then when you add the fact that they can change the amount of color that they display at any given time in any part of their body, and you know, all of that, it's kind of the chameleon of snake, and it's really special. You know, they're really different.
Het T positive, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the black ones never did it for me, just because the only times I'd ever see black ones is they were imports on a table, and they didn't look that great, and
probably a little angry.
Yeah, they weren't the nicest.
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, if I'm gonna have a black snake, they already have black milk snakes or black king snakes, you know, Mexican king. So I was like, those exist. But then I saw all the other colors. There's so many other colors that I think are really awesome. And like I said, the size wise, they're an amazing snake. I really think they're going to take off. It's just, you got to get more captive bred in front of people.
Yeah. And, you know, part of that, it's definitely in the works and in the plans. And, you know, I've been really fortunate to have partners, people who I, you know, have made business acquaintanceships with various parts of the world. I mean, I definitely did not get to have the diversity of morphs here in the US that I do, you know, without having people all over the world that were willing to be like, hey, we have this cool, you know, I know you're into this, and we have this cool thing. Do you think this is a new morph? And I'd be like, I will take all of them. Thank you. You know, like, specifically, you know, like Rolf Dennison, he does amazing work. He's definitely helped me out along the way. I would definitely give him big props for that. Nicole Klein's done a little bit of that too. We exist. Okay. Yeah. The house snake community does exist. It's just that a lot of us are European. And so, you know, we don't have like faces in front of everybody. But we do, we're there. We're definitely out there, and there's definitely more than just me. And there's definitely, you know, a good variety of different combinations of things. And our morphs are mostly recessive. So it does make things just like horn snakes, you know, you gotta kind of trust the people that you're working in. And there's been a lot of people, because house snakes are so kind of new to the industry. I get called in pretty regularly to things of like, ID this because this is supposedly like a het whatever. And I'm like, no, that's just an imported Togo. If it was hybrid of this and that, you know, if it had this in it, it would look like this. And, you know, so I'm kind of building the encyclopedia of what things look like, what they're not. And
they're coming along at a good time, because we're dealing with a lot, and we'll talk about US ARC later, but we're dealing with a lot of people, a lot of legislation along larger snakes. So these fit perfectly in the smaller snakes.
Yeah, and I was panicking that, man, because that whole whitelist business, I was like, there's no way they're going to include me. Like, I'm going to be just shut out because nobody even knows my name. You know, like it's my species are going to be like, what? The what's?
You know, I didn't think about it, but when you're in such a specific species of snake, those lists get even scarier.
Well, the whitelist does. A blacklist is fine because they're never going to come after African house snakes because they're not thinking about it. But a whitelist, you have to get someone to add it to the list,
right?
And
we don't got like heavy hitters, like, you know, like
you don't have Justin Kabilka's not going, you know what, guys, we need to get house snakes on this list. That's not.
I met him. Nice man. I want
to talk about him later too. He had something else come up recently. But so with the house snakes, my range. I always compare them. If I'm trying to talk about, imagine if a corn snake and a python were to have a baby, It's a
Mhm.
house snake. Like it kind of
But then
looks
be a
like
little bit smaller for some
Yeah.
reason. Yeah.
it looks
Yeah.
kind of like a python, but it's
Mhm.
not. And I mean, and it climbs up. I mean, they found them in houses. It climbs in trees. It does things that rat snakes and corn snakes would do in a little tiny package.
Yeah. Yeah. They're amazing pets, really. They're so fun to watch, and they're very intelligent. I'm sure you guys are aware. The Lamprey family is actually closer related to cobras, to the elapids, right, than they are to the colubrids. So they are actually very intelligent, just like how the cobras and vipers and things of that nature are actually very intelligent. And that makes them really interesting, because they can do things like feed maze puzzles and stuff like that. You can actually get
Oh, wow.
house snakes to file snakes are really good at it. I actually been meaning to post up a video of that for a while. I just haven't. I've been kind of moving and like dealing with some stuff the last year, and so I haven't really been on board. But I'm finally settled and stable, and I'm going to be doing all that here pretty soon.
My-
Kind of working on more.
My house snake
Yeah.
definitely knows when I open the door. Like
Yeah.
it is coming. It has got a very good feed response. Once she's out, she's fine. But
Mhm.
yeah, she's always looking for food.
Yeah, hungry girl.
And
Yeah, that is one thing that I really actually enjoy about house snakes is you really don't have to worry about them not eating a lot. Like, like when I worked in corns, and nothing against corns, Kathy Love, I love you, by the way. But I do love corns, but I don't really have to worry about starting house snake babies like I did
Yeah.
corn snake babies, or even king snake babies, which are notorious for being good feeders. I don't worry about that. And a lot of people, when they see my tiny little house snakes, they go, "Oh, that eats a pinky," and I'm like, I can feed it like a day-old pinky right off the bat. Like,
Yeah, I get that. I breed
unless
Samboas, so I get the same thing. I'm like, what does this little thing eat? I'm like, it eats a pinky mouse. Can it eat that? I'm like, yeah. What do you? That's what they eat. I don't know what to tell you.
unless it's the Leonidas dwarf. Okay, the dwarf house snake. If you can imagine how small house snakes are, imagine the
Yeah.
dwarf version. Okay, these guys can fit on like a dime. They're tiny.
Oh,
Like,
geez.
tiny. I feed them feet.
Jeez. So,
'Cause they're
all right.
small,
So you've
but-
got the house snakes, and we talked. You have mad hogs. I know both of those have
Mhm.
great feeding responses. Do file snakes fall into the same order? Or are they a little trickier to get
Yeah.
eating?
Yeah, file snakes are great feeders. And almost all, like 99% of my colony are frozen thawed feeders. And actually, a lot of them will not eat live. They
Oh, wow.
don't actually really have a way to really defend themselves against live mice. So it's really important that you kind of keep them from doing that, because they can get injured that way. Just like, it is with balls and other things that might not do it, but they tend to spook if you,
Sure.
yeah. So I just put it in and I shut it, and that's the whole game with file snakes. They're
I've thought
very
about
easy.
getting a file snake just because they're cool looking.
Mhm.
Just the way that they're
The
shaped,
feel
everything
is where
about
it's at. The feel is really cool because they don't have overlapping scales at all, and they're keeled, so every scale is folded, and so it really does feel like a rasp or like a file. That's how they get the name. When it moves through your hands, it's not like it doesn't hurt or anything, obviously, but like it's a very different texture than any kind of snake you've ever felt. And if you haven't done it yet, you should, because it's definitely an experience.
Oh, you could tell that just from looking at the pictures.
Yeah, now I have to get a file snake.
Yeah.
We'll add it to your list.
What I can do is I can get it and I can say I'm opening up a small reptile zoo at the high school I teach at. I can get it, put it on exhibit at the school.
That I'm 100% down for.
If you ever go to one of my shows, I've been Repticon or Herps or pretty much Show Me. I just did a Show Me not too long ago, which was fantastic, by the way, if anybody's wondering. That's the one I have out. Like, I have lots of house snakes there, but if I'm actually out at a show, 90% of the time I will have a file snake in my hand, and I will be like putting it into kids' hands and like putting it into their parents and like telling them about it, because they're fascinating creatures, and they're so cool to touch and just like experience and play with, and it's really been a pleasure to breed them, work with them, be one of the people that actually can do that. So it's
like I said, I don't see them often other than import type stuff. So that'd be cool. I've only ever seen. I don't remember. There's one other guy I've seen in videos in the U.S. that breeds them.
Matthew Most, super
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, and
He
he
does
had
most
them.
of the Cape, is my understanding. We've talked a couple times, but it's pretty short. I wish we could like kind of network a little more. Maybe we'll reach out and make something happen with that. But down here in the U.S., if you're looking for file snakes, it's me. There's a couple people who kind of got some from me that we're all kind of like establishing colonies and trying to make that happen. Haley Sager or Batty Exotics is doing one, and I'm really excited for that. The Edens are doing a set.
I say I'm not sure who Long Jules is, but they said awesome podcast. April is so knowledgeable, and they have 2 of your CB files.
Captain Bread.
Okay. I don't know.
Well, thanks.
Well, also, Darren Watson had a question on the text or in the chat because we were talking about Alaska earlier. He said, how much did rats and mice cost you in Alaska, and how difficult were they to come by?
Oh.
The face
Rat?
alone, those of you that are not watching, the face alone tells us that it's quite a high number.
Okay, so rats are actually illegal in the state of Alaska to own unless they are albino. So the only kind of rat that you can have at all is an albino. And that makes things very complicated for live rats. Typically, you're going to pay $3+ for even pinkies. Like it's very, I mean, it's not terribly crazy compared to like some of the prices down here. It's just that the
Shopping
availability
at PetSmart for a pinky
is not there, you know. So what I used to do when I bred reptiles in Alaska was I just fed everything frozen thawed unless I could avoid it, and then I bred my own. Like I had a rodentry that I, used, and most people do that here too, but up there it became very important because, it was not very common. Reptile keepers as a whole amongst the general species were kind of in the minority. And then you put that in Alaska, it's a very low minority. And so networking up there, presented challenges for sure. And so just like most things in Alaska, you have to be very self-sufficient. And so that's how we did it.
That reminds me, Katie and I had a conversation earlier. We need to find a rodent sponsor for our podcast so I can save some money on rodents.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody out there listening, I would gladly take a rodent sponsor for rodent discounts because Jesus Christ, not just Alaska, rodent prices in general right now compared to like 5 years ago are insane.
Yeah.
I think there's some reason for that. I'm actually friends with a few rodent breeders, and it kind of seems like they go through cycles too, where it's like everybody wants a bunch of hopper mice when ball breeding season hatchlings come out, and then they want all this, but that simultaneously coincides with the, when things are like heated up, and the mouse production is actually down during that season. So then it becomes a scarcity. And just like in any market where you have a very desired product with limited supply, your supply and demand, you're going to see prices inflate. And then when, that season is changed, that shifts, and then, the mice are cooled off some, and then they start producing more. Now you have more, demand, then your product and demand shifts, and then you see prices drop. And part of that is, for rodent breeders is difficult because there isn't really ways to balance those out year while and stay consistent, year throughout, unless you're a very large breeder of rodents.
Ball python have ruined small rats for people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Everyone small. I've seen small rats cost more than jumbo rats.
Well, yeah, and again, it's that supply and demand thing.
Yeah.
There's so much demand for small rats, and then the supply is, if you're taking, and this is something that I deal with in my stuff too, which uses micro pinkies. If I'm taking a breeder's entire stock of micro pinkies, there is no hoppers for the ball breeders later. You know what I'm saying? Because I've taken them out before they could mature. So if everybody takes out the small rats, there's no large rats for the people who need them for their, berms or retics or big blood pythons, whatever you're doing that requires larger prey. It's kind of a problem.
It's gotta be tricky for you buying pinkies because like sometimes you order small pinkies from somebody and somebody's small pinky is not the same as what you're expecting in a small pinky.
Yeah. When you work in stuff that is like hatched out at like a gram,
I'm just thinking like my Samboas normally hatch out at like 7 or 8 grams. So I'm just thinking smaller than that is insane.
So you have to come up with some tricks. So some of the things that I've been known to do to kind of get around that problem is I'm really fond of Gekko Juice. If you have Gekko Juice, which oh gosh, I can't remember who.
Reptile makes that, right?
Thank you. Yes, Reptile makes it. It's basically ground up geckos straight through a cheese grater.
Which is funny because I've heard it, like before that ever came out, keepers used to like catch geckos and lizards and then they grind them up and then freeze it. And then they would take the little gecko ice cube out and rub it on whatever they had to try and make smell like a lizard. That's
one way of doing it, though. I mean, if your prey, if your species is naturally eating geckos for prey, then it does help. You know, if that's what they're out there looking for in the wild. And I mean, there's a lot of PETA type people that will get upset about that sort of thing, but it's, at the same time, snakes gotta eat.
Yes.
And we have a responsibility, to them to make sure that they do and that, they can grow and be successful in their little snake lives. So, that's just life in general. We can't really fight those things. But yeah, geckos, one way to handle that. One thing that I've kind of been fortunate in for sure is that I have developed good relationships with some of the rodent breeders that are decently close enough to where I live that I can go down there on an hour's notice and be like, I need 56 red hots that were just plopped out of their mom's backside, like tiny. And they'll be like, okay, I won't pull them until 15 minutes before you're set to arrive. That way, they're as tiny as possible by the time I get them back. And I actually just did that today. Tuesday is my feeding day. So I've been really lucky in that. In that way.
Rats in the sink downstairs. I need to feed out.
They're in a bag in the sink.
I've noticed that Tuesday tends to be a lot of our feed days. Like we tend to all kind of do it on Tuesday.
mine's random. A lot of times, like I'm gonna feed this weekend, then the weekend comes by, and I'm like, shit, I didn't feed this weekend, and then I pull out on Monday and feed on Tuesday. And
then what happens is at like 11:30 at night on Tuesday, he's like, oh shit, I didn't feed, and then he goes and feeds everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when you have like 400, it's like you have to just.
You have to schedule that stuff. That's different.
Yeah, you just have to. It's just not like. It's not really a negotiable thing where you can just be like, I'll put it off. It's like if you put it off now, you're going to have, and like again, this goes back to the concept of, if you're commercially breeding, you have to have these things in place. And just like any business owner, you have to have a lot of discipline on, when you're going to do this, that, the next thing. And so that other things don't back up into other things. And then you end up with, problems like not having the time to clean for that week or not having the time to, change out your bedding or
even on the normal person. So like a lot of people, even if they have 10 snakes, they'll walk in, the cage is dirty. They go, you know what? I'll clean it tomorrow. And then tomorrow comes and I'll clean it tomorrow. And then tomorrow comes. And then all of a sudden, oh no, all 10 of my cages are dirty. And now they're having
then you're stacked up.
Yeah, they're cleaning 10 dirty cages. Whereas if you just would have done the one and then done the next one when they got it never would have piled up and it never would have seemed like a chore.
Yeah, yeah.
Can
we have kind of a rule on that?
Can we take that philosophy and
move the house now
it to like the kitchen?
Nope, I'm good. The difference is that the cage being dirty could end up killing my animal. The kitchen just means I gotta
deal with a pissed off wife.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm used to that. It's 18 years.
In some circles that can cause some damage too.
18 years of it. If you're not used to me being sloppy, then I haven't done anything. The kitchen is not dirty because of me.
Right.
No, but you gotta eat.
That is true, but you make way more. Like we just get some chicken nuggets and air fryer, and I'm good for.
We are adults.
What's your point?
We need to eat like adults.
Adults can eat chicken nuggets. This adult would eat chicken nuggets.
I'm fully aware of that.
All right,
that's probably why that adult has diabetes.
Chicken nuggets didn't give me diabetes.
Somebody posted
bad genetics gave me diabetes.
Somebody posted in a snake discussion group asking people to email and message these some Mississippi wildlife extravaganza, asked them not to bring the rattlesnake roundup people back because there's like a video of them with the rattlesnake on top of a tote and he's got a balloon in his mouth and yeah. And somebody commented, "You'll like this. Now you know why Alabama's motto is thank God for Mississippi."
Fuck, I'm from both those states.
Yep.
Shit. I want to get to our question for this week because it's funny. I told you, Robert. Sometimes we'll post a question that I'm like, this is gonna be a really good question, and we'll get like 4 replies, and then sometimes we'll post a question and we'll get like 24 replies in a minute, and that's what happened with this one. It blew up when we posted this. But the question was because I asked April for a question. You gave me a bunch of questions you get asked on a regular basis, and you do have a lot of not so common snakes that I think definitely people should know more about. But the question was, what not so common snake do you own or would like to own, and why? So we'll go through several of these, and then I want to get back to talking about mad hogs in a second, so we haven't talked about those. But going through them, Christian Parr said tiger rat snakes, which my only experience with tiger rat snakes was they wanted to eat my face. They're pretty. They're very pretty. But
get them dewormed. Seriously. It's
really?
important for them. Yeah, so they calm a lot down if you get them dewormed.
Huh. He said they're long, active colubras that always seem to be keyed in on their surroundings. Also, it's hard to beat a black and yellow snake. I can beat it. Jungle carpet. Done. Beat it. Done. I like jungle carpets better. Plus, when I want to say jungle carpets never tried to eat me, but that's not true either. So this was a cool one. Mike Cameron said, I'm gonna mess up the pronunciation of this one because I mess it up every time Max tells me the snake bite or the snake foundation. It's the it's a rat snake. It's the one that's on the symbol for the medical thing.
Gotcha.
Yeah. It's AESCULAPIAN. Yeah, you're trying to pronounce it too in your head.
Is it like
yeah,
Sure.
see, that's where you fuck it up too.
Esclupian.
No, you're putting the U in the wrong place.
Oh.
It's CUL. Anyways, it's the snake you see on the medical symbols, and he thinks the whole history and the myths around these snakes is interesting. They're graceful snakes. They have a unique way of climbing and holding on to things, and they're super easy to care for. I'm glad they're super easy to care for because they're not super easy to say. The Learning Zoo, our buddies over at the Learning Zoo, said, I'd love to get a pair of Louisiana pine snakes. Hey, I know someone who has a pair of Louisiana. Oh, wait, that's me. They're in the other room. That's me. It says, I worked with them briefly in the zoo field, and I love Pituophis in general. I can personally say Louisiana pine snakes are amazing. With that said, every friend I've ever had that had them, they seem to be mean and try to bite them. I don't know what's wrong with theirs, but mine are puppy dogs, both of them. I don't know.
I think it's because of who you got them from personally.
That's true. He does a great job. But Louisiana pine snakes, they're my favorite pine snake. Derek Dykstra said he owns emerald horn pit vipers. I have them because I'm fascinated by the natural history, beauty, and the mystery that surrounds the species. I know they're pretty. They are pretty. They're still a pit viper.
I'm not gonna lie. I Googled a lot of stuff on this list because I had no clue what any of it was. Yeah, they're
pretty,
cool,
aren't they? The black and green. No, it's a pretty viper. This is another one. Lawrence Swift is another pretty viper, kind of in the same color. It's venomous. If I ever owned one, it'd be a Mangshan pit viper because those colors are unreal. For non-venomous, what the fuck is it with rat snakes? A Molin Dwarf's rat snake. Molin, I don't know that one. But again, because of the red to green, and the red is amazing. Apparently, it's a red and green rat snake. I don't know that one, but I don't know. I'm assuming it's probably like an Asian rat snake, and there's a lot of Asian rat snakes. I don't know. Daniel Cruz said my San Isabel, her Candelia, her Paul's and I, her like the Solomon Island tree boas and stuff. Those are cool. I know our buddy Travis just got 5 Solomon Island tree boa adults in today.
Oh, that's right.
They were larger than he was. He sent me a picture. I was like, those are full grown. He goes, yep.
I bred them for a little bit there. They're pretty good.
I like the viper boas, but there's a couple problems. One, everyone I've ever seen outside the one I owned that starved to death, everyone I've ever seen tries to bite like crazy. And you don't find captive bred ones. And if you do, they're insanely expensive right now because
there's so few.
There's very few of them. They're mostly imports.
Supply and demand. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they're a weird import because they can import looking like shit, and then they shed, and then they look. Some of them will look amazing once they shed all that jungle skin off, all that skin that's covered in mud and dirt and everything.
Right.
But viper boas are so cool looking, and I'll probably get one again someday. Chris Hubley, this is also a cool snake. This is one I saw at Conroe once and got to hold, and is probably the weirdest feeling snake I've ever held. He said an elephant trunk snake.
Yeah, those are interesting.
Yeah, that
Those
is a
get
weird.
A lot bigger than you might think.
Yeah, they get, and they don't look right out of water. They looks like there's something horribly wrong, and it's missing like bones or something. It just Someone had one at the show in Connor. I was like, can I please hold that? I've never held one, and they feel weird. They're bumpy. They're little and they're bumpy. It's a cool snake. But he said elephant trunk snake or a hoggy. I've recently had a lot of people send me internet photos and videos of the elephant trunk snakes and their face. Yeah, their face is cute on those things. Otherwise, he said I'd really love a normal everyday snake that someone just doesn't want to take care of anymore. You can find tons of just Craigslist. Just get on Craigslist. You can find you a ball python or probably a corn snake. This snake showed up a lot in people's false water cobras.
Yeah.
A lot of folks like the false water cobras. Kelly Miller said they have a false water cobra. Said it's so much fun and had such character. Plus, I like being able to handle and interact with her directly, which I can't do with their bush vipers. Yeah, that is true. You probably don't.
You can.
You can. That is true. You can handle bush
It's
vipers.
probably
You might
just
only
not
do it
recommended.
once.
I like
Don't
my
do it.
EFC better, personally.
Well, the false water cobras we had Zach Loafman on,
Yeah.
and talks about how smart they are. They're super intelligent. And I think people, if you don't own false water cobras, they get big.
Mm-hmm.
They are not a
Mhm.
small snake. They are a very hefty, large snake.
I have a friend who recently lost one in his house for like 2 weeks.
Yikes. I'm
Yeah.
assuming he found it.
Yeah.
That's good.
How old was it?
Full grown.
Oh, shit.
What? 2 weeks?
Mm-hmm.
That's a big snake to lose in your house.
In a
Jeez.
one bedroom
Right?
apartment.
What?
Yikes.
How messed up is your one bedroom apartment that you
It's
lost a
not.
full grown?
It just, dude, think about how big a big snake, how small of an
That's
area it
true.
can curl up in.
That's true.
He was like, it's not going to get out.
No, it's
He's
there.
like, my door at the bottom, it's got one door in and out of the house. It's sealed at the bottom.
It's in here
There's
somewhere.
no vent. There's nowhere for, he's like, I'll find it eventually.
Oh my gosh.
Sure enough. He was feeding.
I'm all
And it
imagining it
Came out and was like, I smell rats. And he was like, oh, hey, buddy, here's a rat.
That's hilarious.
Say falsies are smart enough. You could just like wiggle a rat in the air and be like, come
Yeah.
on.
Yep.
I could not imagine losing. That's a lot of snake to lose.
Yeah. Because he was like, man, I sure hope this thing doesn't climb my bed and like bite me on the foot in the middle of the night or something.
Scott Borden posted scrub python. I'm looking scrub pythons. And I said, why? And he said, I don't know.
Hey, at least he was honest.
He said- but they are cool. Scrubs that's a lot of snake too. Joe Smith said Crebos or pure super dwarf retics. Which
I
super dwarfs,
did.
right? Yeah. Oh, you do?
I did have a pair of those. A pair of
Super dwarfs
super
are,
dwarfs.
well, they're
Mhm.
becoming more common. That's actually becoming a fairly common retic now. That
This was
Uh,
like 12 years ago. Garrick DeMeyer had a set that he had brought in, and they were pure hatchlings, gorgeous, really cool, tiny. I like them that way.
I
But-
like the idea of super dwarf retics becoming popular just for the hopes that they replace retics for being popular,
Yeah.
like mainlands. Because mainlands are fine for folks that can house and properly take care of a mainland. But we
Right.
know that 80% of the people at a show buying a mainland retic aren't prepared for a 15-foot snake.
right.
So at least a super dwarf can keep them under 10 foot and it can be housed like a boa. I mean, it's more doable.
Right, for sure.
Ashley Howdy said Insularis because they have such cool personalities and they're blue. But we talked about this. That's around here. Those are a very popular venomous snake.
Yeah. You and I talked about this yesterday.
But we know several people in Texas that breed them in this area, which is why I think they're a fairly popular snake around here.
Yeah.
Because they're easier to obtain.
Yeah, and I mean they're pretty. So I mean,
I've seen it. It's
yeah.
a gorgeous snake.
It's an easy snake. It sells itself.
One of those collections that we were just talking about that's up for sale is a friend of mine who does in Solaris.
Yeah.
He's selling them all right now.
Victor Lorena posted this one. This is on my short list of snakes I want to get. An Angolan python.
Oh, I know that's on your list.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Who
again,
was it we were talking? Was it Casey Cannon or was it at NARBC?
it may.
I think it may
or
have.
Brett.
I think it was
I
Brett.
think it was
Bender.
Brett.
It was Brett. Yeah. And yeah, I was like, I'm gonna piss Brett off. They're like ball pythons.
You can do it to Jason Brumley all the time too.
Yeah.
Because Jason Brumley has them.
Yeah. Yeah. Jason was standing there and Jason
Yeah.
was like, come on, Robert.
Just call them bumpy ball pythons. It really
I'm
pisses
just
off.
joking, just joking, guys. Just trying to get a rise out of y'all.
But Angolans they're so pretty. And Houston Zoo has one. Yeah, it's a pretty snake.
I hadn't seen Jason in a while. Hopefully I'll
Brumley.
see him at, I bet he'll be at
Oh.
College Station.
Last time we went to the Houston Zoo, I took my 11-year-old daughter around each cage and we played. So the first time we went there, we played a game where I don't look at the sign and I have to tell her what's in the cage. this time we went around and she didn't look at the sign and she had to tell me what was in the cage.
She did pretty good.
She did decent.
I was
She
impressed
did decent.
with her. I only make it around the outside of because they go all the way around the outside.
Well, the inside gets tricky because that's where they have all the rattlesnakes.
And then they
Oh,
go
yeah.
all the way around the inside. Whereas I just kind of flow back and forth as I go through. So I'm done in like half the time that they are.
Yeah.
Rattlesnakes get tricky just because there's so many
But it's
of them.
cool.
Mhm.
I sit outside on a bench and people watch while they take all the time they want.
Allison Harris says she would love to own a pair of Sabu pythons. My hobby focus is small constrictors, rosy boas, Antaresia. And then,
Gorgeous eyes on the Sabu pythons.
yeah, that's
A
what
lot
they
of times
said.
silver. Really
That's what they
pretty.
said, which is funny because talking about snakes that aren't that common, I remember seeing Sabu pythons in like mall pet stores for nothing, and I always call them dirt snakes because they're one of those pythons that like they look at their dirt colors. They're not overly pretty when compared to something like a jungle carpet or something like that. And for so long, everybody treated them that way, and now you can't find them. And so now people are like, I want Sabu pythons, and now you can charge pretty good penny for them because only a handful of people kept them.
Right.
And so, but it's cool to see some of those things come back because ball pythons came along and a lot of things got thrown away to make room for ball pythons in the hobby. So that's a cool one. Allison also said Black Russian Samboas. I can 100% agree with that one. I have a Black Russian Samboa and they are amazing looking.
Yes, you do.
John Feely said Northern White Lip Pythons. White lips are cool. He likes the iridescent skin. I get that.
Mhm. And he can't afford a Bolin's yet, he said. So.
And affordable ones. You can always get a rainbow boa. That'd do the same thing.
House snakes have very iridescent skin, especially.
That is
the
true.
black.
Yes, they do.
That is true. I do. I take mine outside. You can see it.
Mhm. And
Oh.
it's kind of related to how much humidity that they're kept, especially the blacks, because the blacks come from really humid places. But yeah, the more hydrated they are, the more it actually tends to show up.
That makes sense.
This is one. So Ryan Gosso said red-tailed rat snakes. Well, he said red-tailed racers, but the same thing. Red-tailed rat snakes. This is one I do have experience with, and the only experience I have is with 4-foot imports. Fuck those snakes. Fuck them to hell. Those
What are we talking about?
red-tailed rat snakes.
Green red-tailed rat.
Remember the shit pet store in Troy where we went
Yeah,
to college, and
I do.
the dumbass pet store owner just would randomly order shit off the list, and she's like, "Let me get these," and they were just 4-foot wild-caught green red-tailed rat snakes.
Angry.
Dude, she had to put cardboard around the tank hoping they would calm down. And then a week later, when they came back to bring her more reptiles, she was like, packed them up and sent them back. I was like, what? Stop just ordering shit.
Right.
What the fuck made you think full-grown Asian rat snakes were going to be a great idea as a pet?
It'd be dangerous too if you think about it, because there's immunological naivety across Asian and African types of animals. So if you're a pet store and you're getting in Asian stuff that you don't even know what you're dealing with, you might be getting something in that's going to kill half the other side of that, all the
Yep.
Africans,
This
or
one was
vice versa. Like, it's not a good idea for biosecurity. That's all I'm
well,
saying.
this one was a moron. There was a lot of things wrong with her. She also ordered when that second Green Anacondas movie came out, she ordered Green Anaconda to sell. I'm like, stop that shit.
Oh my
No,
God.
stop it. So I got that's the only thing I've ever that's the only thing I've ever been bit by on purpose. I went in the day it came out because I knew she was going to get them in. She's like, "Hey, when they comes in, will you come in and take it out and put it in the cage for me?" I was like, "Sure," because I would volunteer to come help with the snakes. I wasn't going to work for her because she's a fucking retard. But I did say out loud. Anyways,
Yeah, don't use that
Say
word.
that out
Why not?
loud. Because
people get offended. Fuck people.
your wife is not a fan of the word, so don't be an asshole
I can't
and
help that.
pick a different vocabulary word.
All right,
That's a good
continue with your
word.
story.
Anyways, I went in knowing that this was one, it was Green Anaconda. It wasn't going to be happy with me taking out a bag, and two, it had been shipped. It was in a bag, and so I reached for the bag, and then I realized that it was like a 3.5 foot Green Anaconda. I was like, this is gonna suck, and so I reached in, grabbed it, and then it just went to chewing on my hand, just chewing away, and I started pouring blood down my wrist, and she's freaking out, and so I was like, let me start. So I started yelling and everything, and she's like, throw it back in the bag, and she sent it back with them right away, like, I don't want to keep it, and send it back. I was like, thank God, but. That one sucked.
I think my favorite story is Andy and Sean talking about when Andy bought the 2 king rat snakes
got loose?
at the 2 big adult male king rats that he bought at the NARBC auction, and they put them in Sean and Lori's hotel room, and they got out of the bag, and they all went out drinking and came back, and there's these 2 king rats roaming around the hotel, and Lori's like, I'm not staying here until they're caught, and then Andy and Sean are getting them, and like one of them bit Andy in the face.
Oh
and
my gosh.
yeah, I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall on that one. I wouldn't want to have been in the room because I don't want to get bit by one of those, but
Yeah. Our friend Megan says she keeps children's pythons, which have become a little more popular. I just got rid of mine because mine hated me. Everybody's like, oh, no, it calmed down over the years. Like 8 years later, it still hated me. I was like, that thing did not calm down.
I have a pair of Stimsons that I'm actually looking to relocate right now, that are pure. They're Nick Mutton's line all the way, back to him.
Yeah.
Very, very beautiful, small, Antaresia, but they can have some tood.
Man, my female was, she'd strike at the hook, she strike at everything. I was like,
hungry. They're just hungry. They're insatiably hungry. Like no matter how much you feed them, they're just like, feed me.
And I was like, well, I was thinking, man, I'm feeding this thing every week for me to have to not like it. I'm like, no, it's gone. I'm done. You don't like me. I don't like you. We're good.
That's kind of where I am with some of the stuff in our collection. Is like, we're feeding this stuff and I don't even really like them anymore.
Yeah.
Let's sell it to somebody who likes it.
Yeah. Make room for something I do like.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about a lot of things in my house right now.
It's funny too, because some snakes are just like that, and then you rehome them to somebody else, and they totally are chill with them. Like my ex, he bred blood pythons with his ball pythons, and some of those blood pythons would just love you and hate him, or hate you and love him, and it was just like, what? Like you never
There's
really
no
could.
Rhyme or reason to any of it.
Yeah.
My wife has about I don't know, what's he, probably 8 foot Blue Beauty.
That thing.
And he used to be an educational snake. You could take him and hand him to kids. I walk in the room, he's essed up, hissing at me. And it's like, I'm like, all right, dude, I get it. You don't like me.
There's
don't
something about Robert.
We
It doesn't
good.
matter. Oh man.
Something about me he just does not like. And I don't know what it is, but
Let's see. There were a few more. Mark Anderson said is a forest cobra. Nope, I'll pass on that. Scott Schmidt said Apodora. Apodora are cool. If you like a big snake with a goofy face, they're a cool snake. There's not a lot of people that are breeding them though, so you still got that's definitely one that's got to get bred. Let's see. Tony posted elephant trunk snakes, and they posted a picture of an elephant trunk snake. Still such a weird ass looking snake. Our dog is over there crying. Go away.
Go lay down. She wants to Robert.
I can't pronounce his first name. I apologize. I don't know if it's S is silent or it's not. It's SJAK. That's their name. This person's first name. We're going with Jack. We're going to pretend the S is silent. We're going with Jack. They have pure dwarf Burmese pythons, which our buddy Michael Pinnell produced pure dwarf Burmese pythons this year, which is a cool one.
Yes, it is.
Ryan DeMoss posted, what is it's not a vine snake. Is it a twig snake? It's the one with the funny nose. I can't remember what it is. And then Victor said black milks. Black milks are cool. That's another one I think should be more popular in the hobby. More popular than Mexican kings, because black milks get bigger and thicker. Mexican kings
they
fine,
do. You're right, but
black milks go through a color change too. Like
the
king is
color change.
That's true.
Dark red and then turn black.
Yeah, so you get the fun color change.
That's why they're hard to sell as babies.
Yeah, because everyone's like,
everybody thinks they're something else.
Like, I promise this thing will be black. It'll be really, really black one day. Ryan Cox said Eastern hogs and Mexican hognose snakes. But once you get, let's see, hognoses are common. They are common. But once you get the Mexicans, Easterns, and Southerns, they drop off. I bet there are more people keeping Malagasy giants than Southerns in the U.S. I'm sure that's probably true.
Yeah.
Southerns can be a pain to feed. I know that. Plus, Malagasy hognoses are, even though the name hognose is misleading on them. Could you not break stuff, Katie?
They do have upturned noses. I get how it happened, but they're not in the same family, so it doesn't exactly make sense.
Yeah, it gets misleading to folks because they hear Madagascan hognose and they think hognose snakes. And like, no.
Not exactly. No, not exactly.
It is a much larger snake and does not behave the same. It's not going to play dead on you.
Actually, I've had one play dead.
Did you really?
Yeah.
I've never.
Yeah,
mine played very alive.
I think it's really difficult to do, and it kind of makes sense if you think about it. If you are a snake that is the size of a pinky, okay, it takes and you're up against a full-grown human being, right? And you're this tiny little animal. It doesn't take a whole lot to scare you, right? Whereas if you're a 6 foot, this big around Malagasy giant, it takes a lot to freak you out enough to actually make you want to do it, right? So I think that's why a lot of people haven't seen it, but I've actually seen them roll over.
Oh, that's cool.
One of mine, my breeder male Rook, he's done it a few times, but it doesn't seem to be very common by any means. And I just think it's probably because they're not as afraid as, something that would be a lot smaller, and it makes a lot of logical sense if you think about it.
Do you have the other Madagascar hognoses or just the giants?
Just the giants. I did at one point in time have some speckled and a blonde. I didn't keep them. They were just kind of passing through stuff I was treating, whatever. But yeah, no, the only ones I breed are the Madagascar giant.
Yeah, the giants are my favorite. I've seen the other ones. I saw there was a show in Houston. The guy had some blondes. And like, yeah, they're cool. But
those are usually imported anyway.
Yeah.
Well,
that's the Madagascar stuff is always weird because they open and close depending on like who's in charge of the government at that moment in time. So you'll see things come in large amounts, and then you'll see it shut off for a long time.
Yep.
Yeah. And then if you're trying to bring a colony up, it's.
I can imagine that's gotta be a pain. Yeah,
it's fun. Yeah.
Oh, we had a couple other. Our Instagram had some answers too. Herps and Hot Red said his kukri snake, which our buddy Travis has kukri snakes. They are cool colors. That is a weird one to get bit by, though. Those teeth are weird. And then the Snake Room said on Instagram said Owen Pellies. They don't have an Owen Pelly, I'm sure, but they would like Owen Pellies, big old Australian snakes. But I think there are a lot of snakes out there people need to give a try. Just try some of the stuff. And again, it can be tricky because a lot of the things are like we said before, are imports, and people's first. You'll hear lots of stories. People get them and they had horrible experience with that one snake, and they never do it again. And they may have really liked it. So they can get captive bred stuff and try that. It's you start off so better with captive bred than wild caught.
Think about it. You really can't hold it against the wild caughts too. I mean, you would be cranky if something was chewing on your intestines. Would you not be a little crabby? Like, that's
the problem is the general person walking into a reptile show, going up to one of those importer tables or resellers or whatever, picks up an imported snake. Their thought isn't to get this thing checked for worms or parasites, because why should it be? They're buying a pet snake from a place full of pet snakes, and they should just be able, if you go to PetSmart, they don't think I need to check for worms on anything I'm getting from PetSmart. Why should I at a show? And now a lot of that is on the person selling it, whether they're probably not going to do all that beforehand because they're getting it in and their job is to sell it, but maybe they should at least say, hey, this is what you need to do. Although they may lose a sale over doing that.
I find there's really two types of importers: those that will tell you and those that will not. And in Florida, we're pretty fortunate to have some importers that will flat out mark everything as like, this is wild caught, this carries a risk, that you should be aware of. And we have some really ethical imported businesses down here that I think really do a fine job of that. And then we have some that don't. And there's more, unfortunately. I think there's more of the latter than the former, but I do think that it takes a lot to have that candor as an importer type, business, to be able to just, mark it all out and to know that ahead of time. I think that's really pretty cool.
Some import snakes just they're not going to go home with you, be nice, and eat a frozen mouse every week. That's just not going to happen. And that's what a lot of them are expecting. One I see on tables all the time, we've said it before, are sunbeam snakes. You'll see sunbeam snakes on the table. Yeah.
The dark dirt.
So I'm like, don't go home and expect one, to see it, and two, it's probably not going to want to eat your frozen white lab rat. I guess not. That's not what it was eating in the dirt in the jungle a month ago. Like, that's
right. It's not realistic to think that it's going to do that. Really.
And unfortunately, like I said, for someone who is not a person that's been in the hobby for 15 years, they're just buying a pet. That pet should be plug and go. It should be take it home and it's ready to go as a pet. And unfortunately, it's not. So
I think, that comes to the question, and it's been an age-old question in the industry, is whose responsibility really is it? Is it your responsibility as the buyer to do your research and know what you're buying and ask those questions, or is it the seller's, responsibility to make sure that person is educated and has that information,
What's your opinion? What do you think?
I really think it's both.
Yeah.
I
really
agree
is.
with that.
Like it's both, because if you're out there and you're selling snakes that are prone to a particular problem, especially if that problem, like for example, the file snake has a wild caught file snakes can come in with lung fluke that can be transmitted to people. I feel like if you're going to sell them and not treat them, you need to at least pass that information along. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that would be your responsibility, because that can literally get somebody
Yeah.
sick. Or
I'd like to
could
know if
make
there are
other
some
people
zoonotic
sick.
diseases I need to know about if I'm buying a snake.
Yeah, you need to know about that, because I mean, if your 5-year-old daughter is going to be handling this and all of a sudden she gets a lung fluke, like that's not cool.
Yeah, that's
No.
when
You
you
know what
see
I mean?
those pictures and videos on Facebook where they're holding the snake and kissing it, and you're like, oh God, please don't do that.
I mean, they are perfectly treatable. File snakes can be treated and all that, but the fact is that a lot of times when they're imported, it's not mentioned.
Yeah.
And then you get that kind of situation. And I, as a professional, have had that problem. So I imagine somebody who's like a kid could, get something like that very easily without ever getting it looked at. And I think that definitely falls on the buyer if you know that you're working in something like that. But a lot of these importers still don't even know these kind of problems exist to pass that information along. You know what I mean? Like they're working in such a broad scope of species,
Okay,
and such a
so
broad,
that makes sense.
Well,
they may not even know. So it's as a matter of morals and ethics, if you know, you should tell. But really, if you are going to a show and you're picking up a random animal, like maybe you should know what they're about beforehand.
see, the
And
other
then-
problem is those guys that are random importers. They're not, for a lot of them, they're not really caring for these animals. So they're not the person to go to for the rundown on how to take care of this animal long term, because some of them are only getting them in and they've got them for a week before they're selling them. And the
Some of
problem
them
is
only have them in for a day, and they
Yeah.
just take them right off the dock and put them right on the table.
and so the customer
Like-
goes there to buy it from them, expecting them to be the expert, asking them questions. And some of them, instead of going, I don't know, will completely make up whatever. And then the person goes home thinking, that's how you do it.
Right.
And then that's a recipe for failure there, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I mean, again, that brings back to like, you have people who I would consider the ethical importers, and then you have people who don't do it as well. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And that kind of also brings back to the previous conversation about, are you doing it for the passion? Or are you doing it for money? Because that is a factor at that point, right? If you're passionate about animals and you're going to bring in imports for people to have access to refreshing bloodlines. I mean, there is valid reasons for importation. Do not get me wrong. I'm not against the practice. If you're having problems with kinks and whatnot, and you're in your bloodlines, and then when you work in stuff that is ridiculously rare, that can happen. And then you need that sort of thing to fix it. You know what I'm saying? So
Well, we
there's
talked about it
definitely
last
valid
week
reasons.
with the new ball python movie coming out that Dave Kaufman did. Importation is what's kept ball pythons in those areas alive in the wild, because
Right.
they're sustainably collecting eggs and re-releasing the adults. And as soon as importation is no longer viable, those ball pythons become food. And so now you're not catching and releasing, you're just going to keep eating, which is why I think Madagascar really needs to, and Kathy Love talked about this last week, talking about, because they have experience going to Madagascar, that things like the Madagascan tree boas are very common over there, but you can't get them out of there. They're protected, so you can't export them. And that's a country where deforestation is a huge issue. So if you could teach the locals, the forest is important because it has things in it that can make you money. Maybe they quit cutting down the forest. So importation is important sometimes.
Yeah, there's always a two-sided sword. The whole concept of making financial gain from what you're doing. And I mean, everybody has to make money, so it's not like I'm suggesting otherwise, but profit is a motive for conservation as well. So, we got to keep that in mind too, for sure.
I mean, that's in the United States. It's funny. So many people hate like hunters and fishermen. They think that hunters and fishermen are the ones destroying nature, when in reality, because they profit, they get something out of nature. Those are two of the groups that do most of the conservation for nature. Hunters do
because they want to have the animal around to be able to hunt it.
Yeah, and so it always cracks me, like those are two of the groups that do the most conservation. To stop them from doing stuff would only hurt it.
I read an article today about a hunter, but it has nothing to do with what we're talking about.
Random thought. Thanks.
Yeah. It was a guy who went on a hunt in Africa and he was just convicted for killing his wife
Killing his wife on the hunt.
while on the hunt.
I should have gotten her eaten by a lion. I'd have saved him a little bit. Was it that
Nope,
you said it was a
don't.
dentist? Was
Don't
it the
go to
same dentist
Africa
that
with
got in
that
trouble?
guy, right?
What was it? What?
You said it was a dentist.
It was a dentist.
I'm wondering if this wasn't there a dentist that got in trouble for going to people got upset at him for going to Africa and killing some lion or whatever a while back. Do you remember that?
He didn't get in trouble.
No, they didn't get in trouble. Everybody got pissed off at
Is
him.
it
Yeah.
the same guy?
I'm wondering if it's the same guy.
It's not.
I don't think so.
Apparently, that's just a thing dentists do: go to Africa and shoot animals.
I mean,
I don't make
because they make enough
they make enough
money
money,
to
they
go
can
do
do
it.
it. That's
Yeah.
true. That's another thing. People get so upset about people going to Africa and shooting animals. They're not just shooting random animals. Like those are in areas where conservation is being done. They've got to kill certain things or else it backfires. It's like, again, I get it. We like giraffes and we like hippos and we like all this, but same, just like we have too many white-tailed deer here. Sometimes there's too many hippos in an area.
Mm-hmm. Well, like the one that everybody made the big deal about, Cecil the lion. He was no longer breeding, but he was fighting off other males. His teeth were almost gone. He was losing weight. So it was either let him die or let the local people make money off of him.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know. Oh, there was a question for April. I want to go back to it real quick. Long Jules asked, how do you cycle your snakes? Light, temperature, humidity, food? What is the...
So it depends on which species. If we're talking house snakes specifically, they're actually very easy. Most breeders of them can even get away with not cycling them because they're very eager breeders. But I do actually cycle. So I just use the standard kind of African stuff you would use for ball pythons because typically, kind of the same idea. I mean, they're from Africa, the same. Just like light cycle. For forest files, you have to kind of play a little humidity into it. At least that's how I've been able to do it. I'm sure there's probably like maybe Matt Most might have, a different technique, but that's what's been working for me. So that's what I'm going to say. Obviously, I don't have a huge sample size to base off of, but yeah, just basically your standard light cycling. We don't really cool that heavy. The only thing that I do is I just shut off their back heat. So I run vision racks, and they have that cable in the back, and I just turn it off during the cooling cycle, and then I put it back on, and get pairing. And house snakes are not hard. They're really not hard to breed at all, and they do double clutch. That's really a kind of a myth that if you're going to get into house snakes, you're going to have 6-7 clutches to deal with. That's really not true. That is the exception, not the rule by a long shot. I have hundreds of them, and I think it happens maybe once every 3 years. So it's really not huge thing.
Do they bounce back pretty easily?
Happen.
Do they bounce back pretty easily?
Yeah, typically speaking, because they're such good feeders that it does typically bounce back fairly easy. Every now and then, though, I mean, I have experienced some tragedy with egg binding. Is the thing. That sucks for every species, but it does seem to be a thing.
I've had Samboas do that, and that's another live birth, and I've had that issue.
Oof, that sucks. So yeah, egg binding is a thing, and I found that in house snakes specifically, egg binding is more likely to happen if your females are obese, not thin, obese.
Yeah.
So a lot of people think, if they're eating really, really well and they're, they have good body fat stores and all that, that's going to mean you're going to get healthy eggs. And I found that, after a certain body fat percentage, if you will, you get nothing but slugs. And at the worst case, on the higher ends of that, you get egg bound, and then that's a lot of times fatal. A lot of times is fatal, even with the, corrective measures. A lot of times that will be fatal. They do have large clutches for their size. So it's another thing that, is kind of, you got to be aware of. But obesity in snakes in general is kind of a problem. I mean, we don't really talk about it a lot, but really obesity is
I was about to say, we talk about it a lot.
We see it all the time.
Yeah.
I saw a picture that floated around the other day of a retic. I think it was a retic they had cut open that was obese, and you could just see just the layers of fat inside
That was
of
a
it.
taxidermist that did that.
Yeah.
Every
Yeah.
time Sean Gray shares the pictures of the leopard geckos and like, this is what an underweight looks like, or an overweight, or an obese, I'm always like panicking and sending him pictures of my leopard gecko. And every time he's like, Katie, your lizard is fine. Don't worry about it. And I'm like, but she looks so big
No,
compared
that's
to your
just because
picture.
she has a fat tail.
She does,
Well,
but she's chunky around the middle too.
But no, the fat leopard geckos go from like head to the tip of the tail, and it's they're one sausage.
Well, come to find out, even if you never put them with the male, they will ovulate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's what was wrong with her last.
I mean, your bearded dragon lays eggs.
I know.
And it's never.
I need her to stop.
Yeah, because she looks like shit. It takes forever to get weight back on.
She's a class pet. So is the leopard gecko. But the kids were like, Miss Lewis, she's a little chunky. Maybe we should cut back on the crickets. And I was like, she does look a little chunky. So I sent pictures to Seth over at Huff's Herps. I sent some to Sean Gray. And I was like, hey, what's up with my leopard gecko? And they were like, she's ovulating. That's why she's chunky in that area.
Quit body shaming your leopard
I was
gecko.
like, oh, okay. Well, I should know all about this. Moving on.
So I looked at some of the questions, April, that you sent me as suggestions for questions for the week, and I wanted to ask them to you myself.
Sure.
One that most people might be wondering: what is the difference between a colubrid and a lamp? I don't want to mess it up. Lamprofid?
Lamprofid snake.
Because a lot of people will look at if it's not a boa and it's not a pit viper or like a cobra, it's a colubrid. That's how a lot of people lump them together.
And you know how snakes have that colubrid style body, so it does make sense. It's really actually quite technical how they put animals into the lamprofid family, and a lot of it has to do with like the teeth morphology and stuff of that nature is very technical. Basically, it's just a genetic tree of, the evolution from, how they divulged. And they used to actually be listed under the elapids, and they eventually got their own family status. And some of them, a lot of people are like, oh, they're, they'll say like, oh, they're non-venomous cobras, basically. And they do actually have, some of them do have the neck bones and can flare. Especially like the Egyptian false cobras, it's another species that I work in, and they have very impressive hoods. Like they're very, very cobra looking without all the spice, which is pretty fun. Not a handleable snake, and definitely not a beginner's snake. But if you like the cobra look without the cobra depth,
that's what we need to start selling a bunch of those to all those guys that want cobras. Go, oh, that's what you need. Just go. It's defanged. Just go. It's defanged.
Don't get me started on that. On the venomoid thing. I have opinions on that. And it's sad.
I've seen. You can see sometimes in. So I was watching some old wrestling stuff, and there's the one where Jake the Snake has cobra and it bites Macho Man Randy Savage, and I watched that again. I'm like, oh fuck! You can see where the venom sacs are missing. Like this cobra is sunken in behind its eyes. You're like, I mean, you obviously know it's a venomoid. They're not letting the king cobra bite Macho Man, but I mean they did let him bite it, but you're not letting a hot one bite him. But you can just see it. Like sometimes you see these snakes. I can't remember, was it the Jeff Corwin or Steve Rowan? One of them was over in India with a bunch of like gypsies, and they had the cobras and the baskets and all, and the kids are playing around with them and everything, and then someone comes up with one in a bag and drops it, and they all just fucking run. Because that one wasn't defanged and its mouth wasn't sewn shut. It was an active cobra.
Oh, I think that was Corwin.
It may have been Corwin. And it's just funny because you see, like, you think, like, oh, no, they're used to cobras until you bring them an actual cobra. And then they're like everyone else. They get the hell out of there.
Cobras are amazing animals. They
Yes,
really
they
are. Really fascinating, intelligent.
Yes.
They have personality. I personally believe they experience depression when they get defanged. Like, when I worked at the reptile zoo in Monroe, Washington, they had the top 10 most deadliest snakes. And of course we had cobras because of that. But the insurance there required them to be venomoid in order for them to be covered. And every time they would get a cobra in, it would be in all of its glory, how cobras are. And then when you would get their fangs removed, it was like worse than neutering a dog. They're just all of a sudden they're just lying on the bottom of the tank, and they don't want to get up and they don't want to eat and they don't want to like, I'm not going to say that I have a huge experience base with it or anything like that, but in my experience, every time it happened, they would get like what I would consider a depression. And I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's right to do, me personally.
I never worked with elapids when I worked at the zoo. It was always viper. Well, the only elapid was like coral snakes, and those things are, like I've said before, in the U.S., we really got the puppy dog of everything that could possibly kill you. When it comes to venomous snakes or large predators, America got it pretty easy. And so when you come to like elapids, you think the coral snake, that is so easy compared to something like a cobra. I never had to work with cobras, and that would scare the crap out of me because they're smarter. I don't want snakes out thinking me. Cottonmouths aren't out thinking me. They're just sitting there smelling bad.
Yeah.
With an attitude.
And trying to get away.
Oh, they chase you. The internet told me.
Oh my
They will
gosh.
chase you.
Let's not go there tonight.
Oh no, April froze.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Oh, hold on. Now there's 2 Aprils in here. Oh, there we go. Let's go add we'll take this one out.
Oh man.
And we'll add this one in.
Sorry about that.
There we go.
I thought it was ours for a minute. It's.
Okay, don't say anything. We haven't messed
I
up.
know. I stopped. I don't want to put it out there.
So I have another question from your list that I thought was very interesting. What is it like being the only table at a show without ball pythons? I mean, obviously not the only table, but you're surrounded by a sea of ball pythons, and someone comes to your table and they're like, "What the hell are all these things?"
It's kind of cool, actually. I enjoyed it because I'm sorry, I'm getting a really bad reverb.
I know it's weird. I don't know. The audio is odd.
Yeah, it's weird.
Let's see, maybe if I kick that one out. See if that fixed it.
Yay!
There we go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry about that. My phone kind of wigged out. Yeah, it's actually pretty cool. I enjoy it because I used to vend a lot of shows alongside my my ex, and he was a ball python breeder, and so it was kind of like it used to attract people over to the table. So if they were looking for something a little bit out of the usual, it was my side, and if they were looking for the standard fare, it was would redirect them. And now that that's no longer the case, it's kind of like people come up to my table and they want to talk specifically, about what weird thing this is, and I get to educate people and do those things that I really love doing. That's what I enjoy doing in the industry, is spreading the knowledge of the land prophet family and the snakes that I work in. And yeah, it is kind of weird. When I first started, I was actually at a vendor's dinner, and I remember one of the vendors there was like, "You're not actually going to make any money selling house snakes. Like, you're going to take down the show with house snakes." And I was like, well, you know what, that's okay, because I'm still going to do what I love and, what I'm passionate about and what I'm going to, do regardless of, how that feels. And what's interesting is a lot of times people, they'll come to my table and they'll be like, you don't have any ball pythons, no corn snakes, no leopard geckos, no bearded dragons,
no cresties.
No cresties, none of that. If you come to one of my shows where I'm at and I'm vending, you're going to see nothing but land prophets. Like, that's the only thing I work in anymore, except for I got a couple Antaresia left, but I'm working on that. Yeah, that's the only thing I do anymore, is all just land prophet snakes. And that's
like I said, that's the way to go. That's to have the thing at a show that no one else has.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And, sometimes it means that I don't have a fabulous show because there's just people there for certain things, and I may not be that cup of tea for that, individual or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's still a really good show for me if I got to do what I set out to do, which is, go and talk and network and enjoy the atmosphere of being at a show and being able to educate people. And
someone like your table, they may not be there for a house snake, but they may see them for the first time and then come back to you next time for a house snake, because now they know where they can go for some, or a filed snake, or for something that they're not seeing. Now, I wonder, what is it like? Because you'll have captive bred black house snakes on your table for whatever you have them priced at, and then 3 tables away, someone has an adult, sub-adult price at $30 or whatever it is. That's an import. How do you handle that conversation when the person comes to your table and goes, well, the one over there is $30. Why is this one however much you have it for?
I get it all the time. And basically what I tell them is that, that's their choice, but, getting them dewormed, getting them worked on. When you breed something, you have to put time, effort, energy, and overhead into producing them and into them being a higher quality pet. I'm not saying that imported black house snakes can't be great pets. They really can if you deworm them. But a lot of black house snakes as wild caughts are snappy and kind of angry. And you can take care of that by getting them dewormed, but a lot of people won't. And a lot of people would rather pay $100. By the way, that's what I charge for black house snakes is $100. Would rather pay $100 for a captive born one that they're never going to have that fight, and that they're going to have access to a breeder who actually knows about this. Then they're going to spend, $30 on a black house snake that's probably going to die in a few months. And when they message that importer person, they're going to be like, I don't remember you from Adam, and you're not going to get any help with that. And so you do get what you pay for on that situation. And
I'd much rather pay for a captive. Well, there's several things I like that come in that are pretty much right now they're only wild caughts, and the only reason I don't own them is because I don't want to deal with the deworming and having to do all that. Like I love Calabar's burrowing boa. Well, it should be boas, even though it's pythons.
Those are cool. Yeah.
But they're all imports, and the ones you see, every now and then you'll see like captive born babies. I'm like, yeah, because you imported the pregnant female.
Yeah.
But I don't own any yet, just for that reason. I'm like, someone's gonna breed them at some point. I'm waiting on my buddy Travis. As soon as Travis Wyman breeds them, I'm on the list. I'm getting them. But
if anybody can do it, it'll be him.
Yeah, I just need them to hurry up because I want some. It's killing me not to have them.
Right.
But yeah, I would much rather wait and get some captive bred stuff because I know myself. I know I'm not going to deal with the deworming. But if you're definitely willing to do it, it's worth it.
I do it pretty regularly, with blacks. I've been working on this really crazy project I've had forever. The Boedan olivicus is this species of house snake that you never, ever, 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 ever have seen it. I've been trying to get one for ages, and so long now that there's never been one that came in. And I do know people who look out for things for me, importers and whatnot. That I've never been able to find one, so I just kind of decided I was going to make one. And what I've been doing is I've just been line breeding black house snakes to look like that snake. And every now and then I'll get one, I'll see one that's from like wild stock that has the traits that I'm after, and then I can use that to kind of push it, towards that direction. So I do work in them too. But everything that comes in, it's a lot more work to work in niche stuff, because if you're buying a ball python off the table, a lot of times you're buying something that hasn't really been exposed to anything, and you don't really have to deal with that. Whereas if you want to work in niche stuff where you're the only one really dealing with it and in it, you don't always have access to enough information. Like when you're just starting, like as a file snake breeder, there's, like I said, like if you Google file snake care right now, you're going to bring up my page. Like there's not
really cool.
anybody that's, really got like it all written down and out and stuff. And I'm not saying that there isn't anybody else, but like, I'm not really entirely aware of that much information. And people, when they Google file snake care, they might bring up like the marine file or like different species. So like, that's the first thing on my page is like, here's how you differentiate out the different species, because the care is different. And all these Google care sheets that are just based off of whatever don't really, go through it. So when you're working in niche stuff, it can be a little bit difficult at first because you never really know what's the proper information, and you really don't have those people to bounce off of like you would in like ball pythons, where you can go to, if one table doesn't give you a satisfactory answer, you can go right next door and get another one,
And it's funny, if you go to Morph Market and search for file snakes, there's only one person that has captive bred babies.
Yeah.
That would be April. The
That
other
would be
ones are
me.
definitely import adults.
Yeah. I love my file snakes. We're line breeding different lines for colors, which is pretty cool. We have a pink line and a purple line now, and we're working on like this black exanthic thing, which could be cool, or a maleistic, whatever thing that could be cool, but it's early days on that, so we haven't had enough time to really develop that, but might have some pitch black file snakes in the future. That'll
There you
be
go, Katie. Katie likes black
pretty
snakes.
exciting.
Damn.
Can you imagine a pitch black file snake? It's gonna be cool.
That would
That
be
would
cool,
be-
especially with like the almost the point up at the top.
Mm-hmm.
That would be neat.
The
Now
spine ridges are really interesting. I actually had I had sent a body to have those Dermescid beetles kind of undo it, because I couldn't find any pictures of the actual spine of
Oh,
the
yeah?
file snake. Yeah, they're just not really that studied, and so I actually had that done, and that's how I kind of know about the way that the ribs work and all that, was because I actually had one,
That's pretty cool.
the crop seed and all done. So
I'm looking at these pictures of the file snakes on here, and I really want one of these now.
They're neat looking.
They're cool looking.
well, I can teach you anything you need to know. Kind of my thing. So definitely.
So you've done herps. When's the next herp show you're gonna do?
I need to talk to them about it, but I really love to do Conroe again, because I did Conroe in the fall, not this last one, but the one before.
I remember your table there, because I was like, someone has a table full of house snakes.
Right? Yeah, I loved it. I loved that show, and I would love to do it again. And I'm really kind of hoping that maybe I can get in and do that. I'm kind of just settled now, so maybe I can kind of squeak it out and see if I can't get out to Texas. Texas was such a awesome just environment. The vendors weren't my usual vendors, because I've been in Florida, but like they were so welcoming, and just everybody was so just awesome, and the fact that I was, kind of a niche thing and kind of on the outskirts didn't really bother anybody.
Yeah,
they welcomed me, and I was really
we're pretty
really
badass here.
yeah.
I would definitely recommend trying to get on the Conroe show and the Slidell show. Those are the two.
Mm-hmm.
I
that
did
all-
Ben
Oh, yeah.
Slidell. I did Ben Slidell too that same year.
I do remember that as well.
Mhm.
I think you met our buddy Jared.
Jared, yes, Jared Dole. I
No one-
did.
No
I
one
did.
forgets Jared Dole.
Mhm.
I actually thought about him the other day, because I guess because we haven't done shows in so
We haven't
long,
seen him in
and
a while.
I've been so busy up at the front with the last few shows I have done, that I haven't gotten to just like sit and hang out with him in a while.
Me
Jared.
neither. I would love to go out
I
and
know.
just
hang out.
kick it with everybody out there again, because it was so cool, and the after show vibe was very
Yes.
fun. We had a blast poolside. It was such a good time.
Yeah,
It really
at
did.
the Slidell show 2 weeks ago, they had a double baby shower for 2 of the vendors that are pregnant. And
Oh, nice.
we didn't go to it because we went down into New Orleans to eat at a place that I love, and then went to Bourbon Street. But it looked like everybody had a good time,
Right
except
on.
it was Middendorf's, which is used to be really good, but apparently talking to the locals, they sold to like a international company, and now it's
Oh,
whatever the cheapest thing is from
But they have
Cisco.
I
Jo-
don't
Joe's
know.
Italian restaurant there is pretty good.
We ate there Friday night.
And what's the place we normally go to?
Phil's.
Phil's.
So I didn't want to do Phil's again, because we always do
Well,
Joe's and Phil's.
yeah.
Joe's and Phil's. And Phil's is always like an hour wait. And we were staying in like Treme, like just off.
You were across the bridge.
Yeah. So
oh yeah, you may as well then.
So I was like, let's go to Arno's in Bucktown, and it's right there
Good
on the lake.
choice.
And oh my god, so good, so good. Anyway,
Uh,
keep going. Sorry,
No,
I digress.
No, there
I'm
were some
starting to get hungry.
there were some other things I wanted to talk about this week. US Arc had a huge victory recently.
Yes.
Mhm.
And I know in Florida y'all are facing
We
some stuff,
had
but
a-
overall,
Yeah, we are super excited.
yeah, overall there was a huge victory for US Arc and everyone in the hobby. Even if you own one leopard gecko, you won. You
Yeah.
won.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's a
uh,
victory for sure.
The writing that was in what's the name of that bill?
The CARES
The
Compete
Lacey
Act.
Act,
The care, yeah.
Pete's, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, the writing in there that was Lacey Act related, which would bring upon us things like this whitelist that would keep us from being able to own stuff, and was really gonna just destroy the entire hobby. That all got taken out. It's not in there. They didn't vote for it, and we're good. at least for this session.
For now, until the next attack, right?
we are done facing lazy act issues for this session.
Yeah.
Don't worry,
Right.
PETA's hard at work waiting
Give
for the
it a
next
few
session.
more months, they'll get on
Yeah.
it again, but we'll fight them again is what we'll do.
PETA will pay their people to try and get us next time, but we won this time. And that is thanks to everyone out there that wrote emails, made phone calls, wrote letters, US ARC working their ass off, Phil doing everything that Phil does for US ARC. That's a huge victory. And I was super excited to see that, as everyone was. That made its way across all parts of Facebook and social media. But I know in Florida's happy because y'all are facing, because y'all have your own US ARC just for Florida. Y'all face so much stuff.
Yeah, because we got so much crap going on down here with FWC. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, they're down there just making up laws.
There's literally so many of my friends that are also like, prominent reptile vendor people are seriously considering leaving as economic refugees. Like,
come to Texas.
Just going, because it's constant down here, you guys. Like, they are just always
see. We just moved to
problems.
Texas. We have our own show series. There's a couple of them that are pretty good. NARBC comes here to our state. So
Right. I've been to Tinley a few times for sure. I heard Schaumburg was real good.
yeah,
I heard.
there was a video. Dave Kaufman put out his Schaumburg video, and one of the coolest things I saw in it were ivory blue tongue skinks.
Mm-hmm.
Those things that probably only existed in Australia a few years back and somehow magically made their way
They're
here.
probably German.
Yeah, they came from Germany. Germany had them somehow.
They came from Germany.
Yeah, there's so that
I just want to go to Schaumburg because that's where the Weber Grill restaurant is in Schaumburg.
the Weber Grill restaurant.
So Weber Grills are made in Schaumburg.
Oh yeah,
and they have 2 restaurants and steakhouse, but everything is cooked on a Weber Grill, and it is ridiculously good.
I love it. That's the reason you
Sold.
want to go to Schaumburg.
Yes.
Sold.
You
Let's
sold
go.
the steak.
Yep.
But the Schaumburg show, like I said, Dave Kaufman did that one, and I saw those. Those were amazing because I've never seen ivory. Well, at least in the United States, never seen ivory blue tongue skinks, and they were like solid white with like a little bit of pattern. They were awesome looking. Everyone go check that video out after you watch the ball python video, which we didn't talk about a ton. We talked about some last week, but man, some of the hate this week that has come out on that ball python video is crazy.
My favorite one are like the people commenting with, and their facts are so wrong.
Right.
And I loved it because Dave's response to one of them was, when was the last time you were there?
Right.
And then they were like, you could just you could join the P. regius ball pythons are not just a pet rock group and really learn how to take care of ball pythons.
Yes, you could really learn how to take care of ball pythons by going to the Facebook group and not going to Africa where they are.
Having had brief conversation with Dave, and I know he's got to be sitting there going,
"Oh yeah,
fuck you," and then deleting it.
He is very much more political in his video.
Yes.
What's the word I'm looking? Not political,
politically
but
correct.
Politically correct in his videos.
Yeah.
Because
that's how I am. I like to type out a good like "go fuck yourself" and then read it
and then delete it
Yeah.
Oh,
Something very therapeutic about that.
I had someone yesterday tell me that they would be praying for me, and I was like, "You can keep it.
I'm good. Well, I was like, so I listened to Chris Eaton's new episode, and he talks about he thought it was dumb. He said go watch the video. So the video itself, the cinematography, which Dave does amazing cinematography. It's always great. But Chris is like, I don't understand why we had to do that. Why you had to go all the way over there? I'm like, because the natural history of something is kind of cool. Like going over to see the natural history and actually putting your hands on the animal that you take care of. And now for Chris, that would not be a thing because that's it involves being outside. I'm sure Dave probably had to pee or poop in the woods at some point, and Chris isn't doing that.
Don't be ugly.
Dave probably had to eat food that was not
something that did come from a grocery store with a barcode
didn't
on
have
it.
a sticker on it.
Right.
So Chris isn't doing that. So I can see where Chris would be confused, but a lot of us would enjoy doing that. Someone had a good idea. I'd love to see Dave go do a boa video, go to South America, go out in the jungle, find boas, and do that whole that'd be cool.
I'm sure
that'd be cool to see.
I guess he has a new channel he's about to start. And I think it sounds like it's going to be more along those lines.
That'll be his 4th channel.
At least, yeah.
He's got a fishing channel.
Yeah.
He's got an animal channel. He's got the reptile channel. So if he has another one,
dude's doing it right.
But I'll watch it because, like I said, his videos are great.
Yes, they are.
And that's what kills me. All the hate that he got. There's so many people putting out videos.
He got tons more support.
Oh, way more support. Yeah, there were just, but all the people there's so many people putting out reptile videos that are so horrible. Mainly 2 guys in Florida that I'm not going to mention. But Dave puts out videos that are amazing with great content, great information, great for anybody in the family to watch. for the most part. There's some innuendo jokes the little kids won't get, but there's
Sure.
great.
I mean, those are in Disney movies that you watch.
That is true.
Cannot, no,
that is
cannot
true.
say that as a reason to not watch it.
So I was very happy to watch a video. I'm very much looking forward to him doing more of that. Like if he can do more feature length on whatever species, just seeing him go there and find them.
Yeah.
I would love to be able to go and find some of the species I keep in the wild.
Seriously, one of my dreams is actually to go and find a house snake just in the wild, just
Hanging up in somebody's rafters of their house
Yeah.
in Africa.
just to see it, watch them swallow some enormous bird, because a lot of people think they can't eat big food, and I would like to document that that's not the case a little bit, like
That would be cool.
that'd be cool to see for sure.
That's like carpet python people. I listen to Morelia Python Radio, and they go to Australia and they're out in like the outback looking for snakes when like they could just go to a neighborhood and probably find a carpet python so much faster.
Yeah.
Just every video or picture you see of something in Australia is like someone opens their grill and there's a carpet python just coiled up inside of there hanging out.
It's funny.
Well, that's our rat snakes.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
happens. I mean,
Now I'm not gonna lie. So today we have a camera on our front porch, and today
This is the second day in a row that's happened.
this is, and it happened. Yeah. So we have a lizard that has been hanging out near the camera.
On the
and
window.
Today he just hung out right in front of the camera. So our phones kept, because it alerts like every so many seconds when there's been motion detected. So dude was blowing up my phone with alerts today.
I was thinking if you guys weren't home, you could have like turned on the audio and turned it all the way up and then like yelled into it and made the whole window vibrate.
Hey, motherfucker,
He'd
get
run
off here.
Yeah. Because he was doing that yesterday when James went at the shop.
Yes.
And then the
He-
birds were circling and
They're
all
like-
crazy
Okay,
in the front
I
yard.
thought the birds were what he wanted me to look at yesterday, because birds freak me out, but it wasn't.
It was
Then I
the
saw the
lizard shot
lizard that
across
like
the screen.
shot across the screen. But yeah, so homeboy was just hanging out today. But I mean, think about it. Like, imagine that like it was a snake that set up. You know how many people would have freaked the F out?
We had to drove home as fast as possible.
Oh my.
I swear, if there had been a snake going across the camera, I would have flown home to find nothing, probably to find not a damn thing and be upset.
Oh.
Darren wants to know how many snakes are you producing this year? That's got to be a ridiculous number.
Me personally?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I honestly don't. I'd have to look to know for sure.
Let's go on. More
I
than
haven't calculated.
200?
Out. Definitely more than 200.
All right.
Greater or less than 500?
Probably greater than.
Oh shit.
Damn.
Um,
Okay.
Well, okay, so you got to keep in mind, guys, though, that I'm not just like breeding here for the U.S. A lot of my stuff ends up overseas, like
Yeah.
goes to other places, because Europe has a pretty good house snake market, and so like if I'm trying to get things over there, I don't have the license to export myself, but I have people that do, and I can ship to them, and then they can pass through that way.
You are international.
Yeah, well, that's how I started. So yeah,
That's
Well,
cool.
it's got to work great over there. It's a small snake, and a lot of places that racks aren't a huge thing over there. So, like cage wise, you can fit a ton
Yeah,
of those
they
in
do
cages.
like them a lot. I mean, there is racks in other places. I know I've seen like some of Rolf's videos where he has racks going on, and
Mhm.
I know a guy in Italy that works and actually has vision racks. I'm not sure how that happened, but it's kind of cool. He's got the setup that's very similar to mine, which is pretty cool. And yeah, I mean, it is challenging to operate that way because you have to learn a little bit of a lot of languages if you're going to do that. And let's just say it's not, unless you want to learn 9 languages, you kind of have to guess what you're going to talk about and try to like figure that out and try to have that kind of conversation. And people out of country really do appreciate that effort. I've found that if you want to make, good allegiances in other countries, just making the effort to even just have a greeting that's common to their culture will help a lot. That helps a lot for sure.
That's cool.
Just imagine the time difference has got to be a pain, because like I'll see, it's funny, Robert will get messages from people in the US at like 3 a.m. I want to buy this rack, and then get upset that he doesn't answer by 3:05.
Yep.
Yeah, if I want to talk to like an associate of mine in Africa, that means that I have to wait until about 10 o'clock at night to do that. So we have very opposite schedules in some places. I mean, it just makes sense, right? In different
Yeah.
time zones.
Mhm.
So some of that can get kind of confusing. And then some of it can be really difficult when, you have shipments that are moving across, because somebody might need to get a hold of you right now, and where they're at, it's, minutes to closing at 6 o'clock, but in where you're at, it's 2 a.m. and you're like half groggy, like, what's the emergency? What's going on? And you're trying to like navigate these very high pressure situations sometimes where, stuff gets tagged and like, or they have to be inspected, or like a few years back in like 2019, I had a box that was a shipment that was delayed and had to be inspected, and they had to talk to me, and they called me at 3 a.m. and we're like, what are all these? And I'm like, they're just house snakes, bro. Chill. Like, it's not going to hurt you, like they don't even know what that is,
Yeah.
So
Well, I can imagine, like, I ship a box halfway across the United States, and I'm stressed the whole time waiting for it to get there. You're shipping it to another country and just hope, and you're not shipping like $100 house snake to another country. Like it's a decent size order, I would imagine.
Yeah.
That's a lot of stress.
I only really do wholesale orders to like other countries. So if like somebody like, messages me and they're like, hey, I'm in the UK and I want this $100 black house snake, I'm going to be like, these are breeders local to you that can hook you up. Like I'm never going to turn somebody down, but I'm going to be like, hey, this will be more economically, make sense for you to, maybe hook up with this person. I'm fortunate enough that, I know a lot of other breeders of them, and a lot of them know me. And so we can kind of help each other. And that's something I think I don't see a terrible lot of in some other like niche species, where they're kind of like, this is my niche and I don't want to talk about how I breed it. I don't want to talk about how I incubate. I don't want to talk about, because then somebody else could do it. And it's like, that's so the opposite of what like me
How
and
you are.
my like want to be. We want to get it out there.
That kind of thought process sets us back. It does not help forward the hobby at all.
Nope.
For sure. I mean, and it brings us right back to that whole concept again of like, what are you in it for? Like, what are you doing? So yeah. I mean, I produce like, to answer the question, I know I produced like 150 files, just the files.
Damn.
Yeah, it was a good year for files. It really was.
What about Hognose? Are you doing pretty well on Hognoses?
No.
I heard those are tricky for a lot of folks. They've had issues getting.
I work exclusively in land profits, hundreds of land profits, and I enjoy the Malagasy a lot because of the challenge. Something that I found that a lot of people I don't think realize is that they are actually found together in the wild. So when they're collected, they actually are like in dens, like they will actually be together. And so, I haven't really been working in Malagasy as long as I've been doing house snakes or frost snakes for sure. But I think that may be a factor in our breeding efforts of them, is that we're maybe not understanding them as social creatures as much as maybe they are in the wild.
Yeah, I know when we came to the zoo, we housed all 4 of them together, and they would curl up together. And I mean, they did very well. The only times we didn't was feeding, because obviously during feeding they are.
Oh man, they are
vicious.
Yeah. I have actually seen 2 of them tear like a small rat apart.
Jeez.
They are aggressive feeders for sure. That's not one for the squeamish if you're gonna feed them live, especially.
So Chris Eaton's in the chat. That reminded me one other thing I want to talk about with we talked about earlier about oh my God,
we're at 2 hours.
I know, I'm almost done. My brain just went blank.
This is why your brain went
Kabilka. Jesus Christ.
I'm worried about him.
My brain, I am too, actually. But Kabilka had a new thing that everybody apparently went crazy. Well, say everybody. Ball python people went crazy over. He had a partner program that was the program he started, just one partner, but it's Billy Rice from Rice Reptiles is now part of Canova. He's in his own business, but he's now doing breeding projects as part of Canova and selling snakes as part of it. It's a new thing and then on Chris's thing, Kabilka said he had so many people contact him wanting to be a part of it. Yeah,
imagine
that's not happening, folks. Don't contact him.
Yeah, if he wants you, he'll contact you.
Yeah, that's what he said. I'll contact you. Yeah, the guy he contacted and did it with, I guarantee that was Kabilka is doing it with him. He's not going to do it with some dude with their 15 pastels and Mojaves in his basement. You don't have a chance. So calm down. Other thing I wanted to mention real quick was Katie's meme that got a funny response.
Okay. So we talk about this all the time on our show if you are an avid listener. And it's always about how people will like drag it on and drag it out. And then they're
The
like,
story.
I'm going to throat punch you in about 2 seconds.
Watch out now.
And then they're like, let me go ask my wife. And so Jared Dole is actually the one who shared this meme originally. That's why I was thinking about him the other day. So anyways, so he shared it, and it is a wife, I'm assuming. And she's like cradling the husband like he's a baby.
And it says, when you're selling a snake and the guy says, I want it, but I got to ask my wife. This is him asking his wife. And he's sitting in his wife's lap.
It's just funny. Like, it made me laugh. Like, I can totally see James coming up to me and being like,
No, you
hey,
can't.
and like snuggling next to me and being like, hey, we should buy this snake. And
Can you
then
really?
I always say yes. So it's
Can you really?
really
Have I ever done that?
Sometimes
Never.
in my dreams.
Okay.
It happens.
That may be in your dreams. Never done that.
No. But anyways, so normally it's the other way around.
And I tell you no, and then somehow we still fucking end up with the animal in the house.
I mean, not every time.
Let's not relive the Austin show.
Not every
That was
time.
a stressful weekend.
Poor Robert.
You guys were trying to murder each other. It was raining. It was cold.
Your hitch got stolen.
My hitch got the pin from my
pin
hitch
from
got
your hitch
stolen.
From the hitch. That
The
was
pin from the hitch got
crazy.
stolen. That's the weirdest fucking thing to steal.
Anyways, some people thought it was equally as funny. I also misinterpreted some people's comments. So Jason Miller-Edovich, I do apologize.
But one person went on a rant to tell us how it's responsible to talk to your partner before spending this kind of money.
100% agree.
And this and this. I think they misunderstood the joke.
But it was just supposed to be funny.
What we're upset about is when someone drags on a breeder or like Robert about a rack for days asking questions, or if it's breeder pictures and pictures.
Or
and-
if they even negotiate price with you and you
Yep.
come
And
down
then,
on price.
yes, and you agree to the price. And then they go, let me ask my spouse.
The big one with me lately has been people ask all these questions. Okay, well, I won't need a rack till like next year, but I'll get with you when I'm ready. And I'm like, okay, and I get that, but good Lord.
It's not that we don't mind help. We don't mind helping.
Not at
but
all.
Come on. Like,
Maybe start the conversation with, hey, in a year or so, I'm going to be looking
Yes.
for a rack.
yes. And then
Because
you can
I would
Can
still
I
answer.
ask you some questions?
But I might not stop what I'm doing to answer your question
Yeah.
right that moment.
yeah, because someone who's doing this as a business, like April's selling stuff for a living, that's her business. Robert's selling stuff for a living, that's his business. A sale is important then. Like that's rent. So it's important to make the sale. So you're gonna be like, yeah, I got it. But if you're just kicking tires, it's fine. Let them know you're kicking tires. But like, if you're gonna go to a show and you know you're gonna buy something, you've probably already had this conversation with your spouse about spending money.
Mhm.
Don't wait till you get to the show, find something, talk the guys ear off for an hour, and then say, I got to go ask somebody.
And you know what else? Don't use your wife as an excuse
Or husband.
to not buy something.
Yeah.
Like don't say, oh, I got to go talk to them.
So the joke here is basically have your financials in order before you waste somebody's time.
Yes.
It's not that you should be allowed to go spend $5,000 on the snake without having to ask your significant other. That's a big purchase, but they should probably know you planned on spending $5,000 ahead of time.
I mean, you do you. It's whatever.
So
What was Joe's podcast called?
Joe was from the ground up. But yeah, so that meme, I think they got upset about it, but I thought it was a funny meme. It was pretty good.
That was cute. Made me laugh.
And then one last thing, I want to do our giveaway real quick. I hit the random number generator, and I want to do our giveaway for this is the giveaway for a US ARC membership that's sponsored by Sean Gray of Herps.
Cool.
We did our giveaway last month, which actually went to somebody and they gifted it to somebody else. We're giving it to somebody else.
Yeah, I need to message her. Actually.
There was a local herper that wanted membership, and so she's gonna get it. But our person here is Victor. We had him on the podcast a few weeks ago. He won his membership. He's another Floridian like April. But we will contact him, or he's already listening, or he'll know by the time. But he won a free US ARC membership for a year, and we'll get with him and we'll get that taken care of. Because US ARC, if you don't have a membership, get a membership. It's cheap. Get one. Everyone should have one. It's ridiculous at this point. Look what they did for you recently. You need to pay them some money.
For real.
Give back to what's giving to you.
Yes.
April, this has been awesome. I cannot thank you enough for coming on. If people want to get a hold of you, how would you like for them to do that?
Oh, well, I have a website, howsnakemorphs.com. That's an easy way. Facebook is really the best because I'm constantly on it, answering questions, talking to people. I do spend a lot of my day answering questions for people about just care and various things. So that's really the fastest way is on Facebook. My name's April Linkfield on there. You can find me that way or through my business page, House Snake Morphs. My phone number is 352-667-3331. I typically only do text over that.
Hold on, one real quick. I know Chris Eaton was listening. Chris, she didn't give her phone number for you to call her, so don't leave her alone. Don't send her any pictures.
Unless you want to like hook her up with some cool swag or something. I mean, that might be fun.
I'm just trying to stop her from getting those pictures that Chris was thinking about sending her.
Whatever.
Um,
Chris would never do that.
Oh boy.
Okay.
It was a pleasure, you guys, for sure. I enjoyed being on.
All right.
Seeing you guys.
Robert, if they want to get a hold of Robert, it's lsreptileracks.com. If you want to get a hold of us, it is the Reptile Gumbo Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and at gmail.com. We will be I'll be on next week, but we'll also, if you're coming to Corpus Christi, we'll be there recording. So if you see us, if you are listening, come by, say hi to us.
I'll be at the front.
Yeah, Katie will be up front. We're gonna bring the megaphone that we bought. So
yeah, I'll be up front in Corpus and Bryan College Station.
Again, don't forget if you need a UVB light bulb, check out VivTech. Our code is Gumbo22. Just trying to save everybody 15% on 15 minutes. Can say 15%. So what? Anyways,
April, don't go anywhere. So hang on just a second.
That's it.
And then
I don't. We have anything else? We're good.
I think we're good.
All right. Bye, everybody. See everybody next week.